Hello everybody, hello, let's see if this is working. By the way, if you're watching a VOD, this is a live stream, so the video you're watching is going to be a little bit scuffed, a little bit long, but hopefully I can be just as concise as I normally am in my YouTube videos, because I want to kind of emulate that a little bit. But today, we have an update on the Kwite situation, which I talked about a couple weeks ago on this channel. I read out a twit-longer allegation by someone called Orion, who claimed that Kwite essayed them. Now, as soon as I found this out, right, I actually have a friend in real life who is best friends with Kwite, who knew Kwite at the time of this occurring, allegedly. So I talked with him before I made my video, which was just a rereading of the allegations. I didn't say anything was true or false. And it was a private conversation. I learned quite a bit, and I'm just mentioning it here now because I basically, based on what my friend told me, which I have a ton of faith in him to be a good person and to be genuine and stuff like that. I know him in real life, not just through YouTube. I believe that Kwite is innocent. Based, not like definitively, but based on what I was told. I was told he was a virgin. I was told he had trouble even having sex, so him being capable of sexual assault seems pretty far-fetched. He does talk about this in this video. I knew he was working on this video, so I didn't want to say anything publicly about the conversation I had because I don't want to step on his toes as he's trying to cook up his response video. But now it's out, and I haven't seen it yet, and so far the reception's positive, but as you can see, I loaded this up when it was 23 minutes old. This video's an hour and 31 minutes long. There's no way anyone could have a full definitive opinion on what was said that early on, but it looks good. I watched a little bit of it. He seems concise. So let's just watch it for ourselves and see what we think. And hopefully, ideally, Kwite can come out of this completely unscathed, and, well, not unscathed, but redeemed, and hopefully I don't have any additional questions about the situation after watching this video, as it is an hour and 30 minutes long. I should not leave this video with more questions than answers. Also, I already like Kwite because he has a 3DS on this table, but anyway, regardless, I just wanted to mention my slight bias going into this. Like, one of my good friends is best friends with Kwite, and obviously he believes he's innocent, and he's told me stuff that is factual, that shows that he is potentially innocent. So I am leaning towards Kwite, but I will give this a fair shake, and if Orion has a response to this video, of course, I will give him the time to respond, you know. But it's only fair that I do this stream because I did make a video talking about the allegations, and I don't want his voice to be unheard. So let's just watch this.
This is my response to several allegations made against me, the most serious of which being that I sexually assaulted a former friend and ex-partner of mine named Orion.
So he talks very fast in this video. We could watch it at normal speed. I'm gonna go 1.25, but if you guys feel like I should lower the speed, tell me.
In Orlando, Florida on February 18th, 2018. This is patently false and completely untrue. Not only did I not assault Orion, I never had any sexual contact with him in any way, shape, or form. I have a lot of evidence to share backing what I say in this.
Slow it down. I agree. He actually talks very concisely in this video, which I appreciate because I feel like most YouTube videos I watch, I need to watch it at 2 times speed to get the type of speed he's talking about at normal speed. So I think
video, including a recording of Orion giving a testimony
of
this exact interaction from late 2018 that directly contradicts his current version of events. I've prepared what I have to say ahead of time, as this is something I wanted to make sure I had my thoughts in order for when discussing, so if you see my eyes flitting back and forth, that's why. I intend this as a comprehensive look at my time knowing Orion and afterwards, but certain things will be addressed out of order as I need to touch on the most.
And before we get into this, right, I don't want to interrupt him too much, but I do want to say that if we look at his social blade down here, which I can't help but notice, because of these allegations, like, these are serious, he did need to respond to them, because he lost almost 100,000 subscribers off of these allegations. Not to say the allegations are more or less legitimate based on the sub loss, but clearly this is something a large part of his fan base is upset enough about to unsubscribe from him for. So Yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I see this in the bottom of the corner. I'm like 70K, like that's quite a bit.
Severe allegations first. This video will be split into chapters for easy navigation if you want to jump around or come back to any section later. A very strong content warning on this video for discussions of sexual assault, transphobia, slurs, racism, self-harm, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and more. If any of these topics are sensitive ones for you, please use discretion while watching and make use of the chapters if you feel the need to skip any of these topics for your sake. Orion claims I assaulted him in the backseat of his car outside of the Cinemark XD Theater in Orlando before we went inside to watch a 3:40 p.m. showing of Black Panther. Orion alleged that mid-intercourse, I didn't listen to him when he said that I was hurting him, and when he told me to stop, I apparently didn't until some time after he had asked, and that all the way through the act, I was continuously telling him, this is what you wanted. Orion says when I did stop, it was only because I got bored of the sex, and then I exited the car. He goes on to say that after we got into the theater that I had him buy me popcorn to make up for it. This is entirely false on multiple levels, and I have no idea why Orion would this egregiously and ridiculously fabricate a crime of this magnitude. This clip is of Orion describing the same day the assault allegedly took place in a video 4.5 years ago, where he has a very different account of how he felt about that day, even in hindsight looking back at it.
Cut to February where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther. It was fun, and I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, just remember I really care about you, and then closing the door, which made me feel really good because, you know, this was my best friend. We had met up for the second time. He still cares about me.
Throughout the entire video,
That's the exact opposite of what they alleged. The exact opposite. Wait. So in 2018, they were saying he was being so nice to them. So nice. And then in 2023, it's rape. This is the same movie thing that they were, or movie going session, whatever, same trip to the movie theater that they were referring to in the allegation. And wait, they said that in 2018. When was the initial time? Also, I probably should have Orion's Twitter up just in case they like respond, you know? So I'm gonna have that up in the corner and try to refresh that if anything comes up. Orion. I need to find them first. I'm just turning off the screen in case like DMs show up, because on Twitter sometimes DMs show up. 1 second. Okay, I found them. Yeah, their username is Nats. I put it on Twitter. Okay, we do have a response from them right now. It says, I saw Kwite posted a response, but it's an hour and 40 minutes long. I don't have time to talk about it right now, but I will be treating this with the utmost respect this deserves. I can't watch it yet, but I will try to tonight. Okay, so Lee responds, holy shit, I'm gonna watch it. I'll give you a synopsis if you want. I don't want you to get too badly triggered by going in blind. I'm taking some time right now because I'm really angry about the lying he's doing in the video, so I need to take the time with my thoughts. So apparently they already watched some of the video. They think it, obviously they're claiming Kwite's lying, and yeah, I guess we will see what the response is probably fully tomorrow or maybe later tonight. Because, I mean, an hour and 30 minutes is a lot to respond to, especially if you want to do it in a very concise way. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep Orion's Twitter over here as we continue watching this. Wait. I actually want to double-check the twit longer to see the date that the movie theater thing occurred on. February of 2018. Okay, and then when was the podcast? The podcast...
time after he had asked, and that all the way through the act, I was continuously telling him, this is what you wanted. Orion says when I did the theables, and this site 4.5 years ago.
Okay, so this is 7 months after the fact. I mean, the clip looks really bad. And obviously, going into this, I did say I'm inclined to believe Kwite, and that is my genuine opinion. Although I don't have a definitive one yet, because obviously, we don't know for sure, and I just started watching this video. But to give Orion the benefit of the doubt, this is only 7 months after the incident happened, and they were still on good terms, so maybe it was like something happened, but she didn't, or he didn't consider it sexual assault at the time. And then they consider it, I don't know. I really don't know. It's not looking good for Orion, but just keep that in mind, that this was 7 months after. Just want to get all the facts out, regardless if it changes your opinion or not, right? Okay, let's continue here.
I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, "Just remember, I really care about you," and then closing the door, which made me feel really good because, this was my best friend. We had met up for the second time. He still cares about me.
Throughout the entire video, that clip is taken from a testimony given much closer to when the assault allegedly took place. The topic of sexual or romantic activity between me and Orion is not mentioned a single time. I'll be going through everything I've been able to gather around mine and Orion's interactions to give my side of how the time we knew each other went, and to demonstrate what things Orion
Also, another thing that could potentially go in Orion's favor is maybe they did not want to talk about what happened to them publicly 7 months after the fact, so they ended up lying or over-exaggerating or ignoring, that part of it. That's another potential thing there. Although I still think I'm still leaning towards Kwite being innocent, but, I just wanted to throw that out there, to be fair.
alleges happened that conflict with what I have to show. Every single thing I have been accused of, not just from this set of allegations, but the one Orion tried to spread in that video from 2018, have never once been substantiated by any solid evidence other than testimony. The only thing ever backing any accusations Orion made against me was a person saying that something happened, oftentimes while contradicting other things they said when giving separate testimonies. Currently, outside of proving that me and Orion did know each other, did meet up in person, and discussed sexual intimacy over text at some point, none of which is proof of anything malicious, Orion has failed to prove anything he claims I have done. This is my account of that day. When we met up on February 18th, at one point, me and Orion were in a shopping center and came across a store that sold plushies. I saw one I liked that I was looking to buy for myself as a keepsake of the trip. Orion, through what I assume was trying to be polite, didn't want to let me pay for the plush and was very insistent that I let him cover the cost. In general, I like to pay for my own things when out with friends, and around this time is when YouTube was first doing well for me, so I knew I'd have money coming in not far down the line. This made me want to pay for my own things even more. When any of y'all first got a job as a kid or a new position that gave you a higher level of income for the first time, I'm sure you felt the same way. You want to use the money you feel for the first time that you've earned yourself to do things for yourself. This plush was not a shared cost. It was something I wanted to get specifically for me. I genuinely did not want Orion to pay for my stuff when I felt I could finally do so on my own. That is more than likely a pride thing, but it is how I was. I distinctly remember the cashier who was watching us bicker about it at checkout say something along the lines of, "Sometimes you just gotta let them pay for it," in a cheeky, young love kind of way. After going back and forth on it some, I directly communicated to Orion that I would be more comfortable if he let me pay for it myself, and I tried to be as direct and clear with this as possible. In response, Orion said something to the effect of, "Okay, I'll let you buy it if you give me a kiss later." This was a weirdly identical mirror to a similar situation that happened over.
Sorry, I had my mic muted in case there's any excess sounds from my mic, so it took a while to unmute it. So let's read these DMs, just to make sure. I want to read all the new stuff that comes up, right? So we have February 17th, 2018, which is probably around the time this happened. I don't know the exact date. So far, we just know February 2018, unless I missed something. But regardless, it's around that date. It's within the same month, right? If you pay for snacks, I will smooch you. You don't want that now, do you? I'll pay for them and dodge your affection. Nah, you can't dodge the smooch. Okay, so there we go.
over text the day before, which I will be sharing. This time, though, I didn't get to just put the phone down and not engage. I'm actively looking to buy this thing in the moment, and Orion is right in front of me. I regret agreeing to their proposal in hindsight, and maybe if I hadn't, Orion would have stopped pushing at some point. But in this somewhat awkward situation, my brain sees that as the most immediate way out of an uncomfortable spot and to pay for the item myself like I wanted. At the time, I took the comment to be lighthearted and honestly didn't think it was something that was going to get followed through on. Later that day, though, Orion and I are in the driver's seat and passenger seat of his car respectively when the topic of the kiss comes up again. What I'm about to say is not a standard of consent I would have applied to anybody else back then, and it's something I've learned is also true for me and I'm deserving of as I got older. Back then, though, I was a lot younger. I was 17 and had complete shit for brains. In my head, I'm thinking, fuck, that's right, I did agree to that. Since it's come up again, I'm thinking that Orion meant it seriously and I misread the situation, and that it would be shitty to now pull out of something I'd already committed to. That is not how consent works in the slightest, even on something as relatively small as a kiss, but despite my hesitance, I did kiss Orion once. That's it. That's all we ever did. Immediately after, I was feeling weird about it. I wasn't exactly enthusiastic about the event in the first place, and I didn't want to go any further with it, so we didn't. I am not trying to paint this as some instance of me being assaulted or violated, and me and Orion can both only give our personal accounts as there wasn't a camera in the car that day. But the dynamic we had regarding sex and intimate contact is significantly different than what Orion made it out to be. And my account is far more in line with not only incidents prior to the meetup, but the type of thing Orion was saying he'd do to me just the day before. Like I said, I never had sex with Orion, and the popcorn I had him apparently buy for me is something I explicitly said the day before we met up that I would buy for Orion. After asking multiple times how much I owed Orion for my movie ticket, he wouldn't let me pay him back.
Okay. The way we hang out a bit before, cool. Yeah, okay.
For the cost. Again, this is literally the day before we saw each other in real life, and I was in that same mindset of wanting to pay for my own things with my own money. I responded to him, fine, then I'm buying your snacks, as that was meant as a compromise on my part. I figured if he wasn't going to budge on the tickets, I can at least do this thing to contribute, even if it was a bit uneven. In my head, it was at least something. We go back and forth over text where Orion keeps trying not to let me buy even his snacks, but I'm standing my ground, and after the third time he tried to get me to not pay for it, I just stopped responding, because I had already said what I planned on doing for my part. Over an hour passes by after that, and Orion is still insistent on this. He texted me a brand new proposal saying, if you pay for snacks, I will smooch you. You don't want that now, do you? And yeah, quite frankly, I didn't want that. This is a lighthearted text exchange, so I'm not going to send in all caps, I do not consent or something like that, but I try to communicate that I don't want to in a relatively playful but straightforward way. I'll pay for them and dodge your affection. And even at that point, Orion still wasn't taking no for an answer. He doubled down and said he was going to smooch me anyways. Nah, you can't dodge the smooch. It will find you and it will smooch when you least expect it. There is no dodging, only smooch. Maybe he meant that playfully, but I didn't respond to it because I was uncomfortable with the way he was talking to me. I'd said my piece on how I felt about buying the snacks as well as getting kissed, and he just kept going. I'm sure that when Orion tried to pay for my stuff, it was meant with good intentions. But in these moments, I set a clear boundary of what I preferred that he essentially said he'd only respect conditionally. This type of insistent behavior, specifically to pay for things, aren't isolated incidents. Orion even admits he has this tendency in the same testimony I shared a clip of earlier.
He drove halfway and I drove to a certain spot and we agreed to meet up. I took him around town and I paid for everything because I insisted that since I was the host, it was my job.
In regards to physical intimacy, the entire time me and Orion knew each other, I was the one most often expressing my hesitance on the matter, backing out because I got cold feet, or just outright denying to do intimate things with him. Meanwhile, Orion was always the one more forward about engaging in physical intimacy. Even if sometimes it was in a lighthearted context, Orion had a disregard for my personal choices and boundaries that I had expressed to them, often persisting beyond me showing clear discomfort and continuing to press even when I had directly declined the physical intimacy he would propose. One of the screenshots Orion used as proof of his claims is literally Orion floating and initiating the idea of us hooking up when we see each other, and my response is being unsure, then stating a reason why I wouldn't want to do it. He also cropped out the next message where he's the one to push for it even further by asking if I have condoms. You could read that as him trying to give solutions to a problem that I brought up, but I personally didn't want to continue with that discussion because I wasn't comfortable. Orion says that we had been on and off flirting and talked about how if we were both single and virgins, we would take each other's virginity. This is not something that was ever formally and fully agreed upon from my end, and much less as something we do at some specific place or...
Yeah, we have a Barone in chat. I've heard Orion has been trying to do the same thing for years only to fail, and that's a red flag I saw in the Twitlonger as well, and it's something I talked about with my friend who's a close friend of Kwite's, and he brought up of his own volition, is that when you look at Orion's Twitlonger, something that comes up is... I think that this was like... They brought up the allegations before. I'm having trouble kind of finding it here because I'm stupid. Let me see if I can find... What word would it be? It would be like... ignored. I don't know. But they talked about... maybe you guys can find it in this text or whatever. I'm sure it's there. But they talked about trying to come out with this earlier, and then it didn't work. So now they're coming out with the situation again. And it makes you think, like, why didn't it work prior, you know? But, yeah.
Time. The virginity thing was first mentioned over half a year earlier in August 2017, where Orion was the one to originally propose the idea in a voice call, and I was the one who wanted to think on it further. While I don't have a recording of that call for the exact wording, Orion specified that a heart message he sent was platonic, and in response, I joked that it didn't seem very platonic, just straight up gay. That's because we weren't talking about just cuddling or something in that vein. He had proposed explicitly having intercourse, and I was the one still unsure about it. The reason I was in Florida was never to hook up with Orion. I was vacationing with my family. Orion was always aware of this, and I only planned to see Orion in Orlando because he was someone I knew who lived in the area. Another time, on December 26, 2000...
Yeah, that is something that... Oh, fuck. Like, I had such a long conversation with my friend that, like, I'm kind of confusing what was said in the... And it was, like, right after I looked at the Twitlonger, like, right when it came out. So I'm kind of confusing what was said in the Twitlonger versus what was said by him. But I was told either through the Twitlonger or by my friend, I guess you guys would know the difference because you only have one of those pieces of information, that Kwite was going for a different reason and Orion happened to be in the area, so they hung out. I think Orion said that, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's what I was told.
2017, after a voice call and small message exchange, Orion asked me to come down south, and at the time, I straight up said no. Where Orion then jumps to the reason for this being, oh yeah, your penis no working. Essentially assuming the reason I wouldn't come down was specifically because of not being able to do sexual things, when I'm not the one who has ever been shown to be the person most
Wait, so he wasn't even gonna meet up with Orion initially, and Orion pushed for it? Based on the DMs, that seems plausible, for sure.
Concerned about doing that. My penis not working, meaning my performance issues, are another thing that I'll get into shortly, but even though at the time I probably meant my response lighthearted...
Dude, dude, if Kwite's 100% innocent here, it sucks that he has to come out with his to explain his sexual issues. It's definitely embarrassing to upload to a 1 million sub channel, but I mean... At this point, it's obviously better than being called a rapist, right? So he was forced into this position, but I do feel bad for him if he is innocent.
As when it happened, I did see this conversation as just jibbing with a friend. When I said, this is why I don't hang out with you, it still has a pretty clear undertone on how I felt about the situation. Another time, on October 28th, 2017, Orion tried calling me, and when I didn't pick up, he said this: I know you're online, fuck you. If you don't pick up, I'm gonna fuck you. I'm pretty explicit when I say in response, don't fuck me, and then I'm busy. Busy being an e-thought, okay? I will fuck you. You didn't pick up, I don't make the rules. I didn't have a strong reaction back then, as it seemed pretty lighthearted, but also because this was how Orion would joke towards me being busy or denying them things fairly regularly. When I said no to having Orion...
So, Orion in her his Twitlonger, sorry, it's a mistake, but in their Twitlonger, they say they're like on an on and off, extremely on and off, relationship, or friendship or whatever, so, I guess their response to this would be, hey, we were dating at the time, and that's why I sent those messages. That's when we were on, during the on and off period. But I assume Kwite is claiming that he never was in a relationship with Orion at all. And since, obviously, he's the one that's deciding to show which DMs, it's kind of, well, There's an archive dump here. I guess after the video we can check out the archive dump. But I guess it could be argued that, like, hey, this is when we were into each other and you're just not showing the affectionate DMs that you had towards Orion. But I guess we can prove it with the archive drop. Let's see if it's in here. Message logs, Discord messages, screenshots. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. There's literal. Oh my god. Oh my god, guys. There's a. Wait, how many. Is this every DM he's ever had with Orion? Oh my god. We have every DM. Wait, 300. Wait, no, it keeps going. Wait, how many are in this folder? This is just one. What? Wait. Wait, the receipts are insane. Wait, there's 400. There's 400 screenshots. This is screenshot 400. Oh no. Oh my god. If I look at all of this, if I do like... Should I do what I did with the Arcadian one and just read everything? That took 10 hours. Oh my god. Okay, well, I mean, the fact that he's willing to put all of this out does prove that maybe he's innocent, but also, like, he knows that not every viewer's gonna look at this. Right? But I might read it all. We could do long stream tonight, guys. I mean... Alright, you know, we'll look at that later, alright? Let's continue with this video for now. God! No, that's one folder, guys. You don't understand. So it's like... I know it's a little cut off, and I don't want to move it, because I don't want to, like, ruin the position, but, like... So we have, like... 3 folders here, and then, like... There's just a lot. There's a lot. Alright, there's a lot.
Ryan on a podcast I had. He said he'd suck me off if I did. When he asked me for a Discord rank, and I said no.
I will fuck your ass. Oh my god.
Ryan said they'd fuck my ass. And on the rare occasion you do see me reciprocate a sexual advance, like the Skype log where I tell him, you have to draw porn, and Orion says, I will, it is still a topic that Orion was the first to bring up the idea of, had initiated by sending me explicit pictures he had drawn himself, and well after the last time I had said anything concerning the topic, Orion would continue to mention as something he was willing to do. All this still being something only happening over the internet, where it required no actual physical contact on my part, making my anxiety around it much more manageable. Orion claimed that we are both ex-friends and partners who had been in an on and off relationship from sometime in 2017 till February 2018. The screenshot Orion showed of him asking who he could tell about us dating, where I respond that I prefer to keep it to mutual friends, but I ultimately trust his judgment with whoever. That was said in the only period of time we have both agreed on the term dating. A period of time that lasted less than 2 days. What Orion never showed.
Less than 2 days? No way, dude. No way. I guess we'll see proof of it in the Discord DMs when we read it. 2 days. Oh my god. The worst. Dude, the most regrettable 2 days of Kwite's life, dude. Literally. 2 days. Fuck, man.
Showed was that at the end of that conversation those lines were cherry-picked from, there was an abrupt tone shift where the conversation switched from something two people freshly in a new relationship might say to each other to something more like strangers making small talk for the first time. This is because the night before, barely a day into us being together, I broke it off. The relationship started because I told Orion I had a crush on him after meeting up for the first time in June 2017. But I was also the one who just as quickly broke it off. I don't have a recording of this phone call saved, but all the reasoning I stated in the call was explicitly mentioned and discussed in that text conversation where we spoke with each other more like coworkers than good friends or partners. It confirms that I was the one who ended it because I was scared I'd made the wrong and a rash.
Okay, I feel like I'm skipping over too many DMs here.
Tone shift where the conversation switched from something two people freshly in a new relationship might say to each other to something more like strangers making small talk for the first time. This is because Star was also the one who
I don't want you to commit to something you don't want in. That's fine. Should have stopped you since it was so close. Can't blame yourself for this. My mistake.
just as quickly broke it off. I don't have a recording of this phone call saved, but all the reasoning I stated in the call was explicitly mentioned and discussed in that text conversation where we spoke with each other more like coworkers than good friends or partners. It confirms that I was the one who—
Not gonna lie, last night kinda hurt, but I understand. I don't want you forced into a relationship too quick. Plus I want to be genuine, not because you have to.
ended it because I was scared I'd made the wrong and a rash decision and had only gone to Orion as a—
If we do something like that, I do too. I just don't know where I'll stand from a month from now. I feel like I jumped into another thing. Yeah, I don't want you to commit. Okay, wait. I think we already read this.
Rebound.
Yeah.
I was coming off the back of a very bad breakup with an ex-boyfriend who started dating another friend of ours just a day or two after saying me and him should call it quits. And while that technically didn't overlap with the time we were together, it felt like my ex had cheated on me twice within 4 months at that point. And while I'm older and mostly over it now, it hurt a lot at the time. It was just a week after that breakup that I saw Orion and this whole relationship dialogue happened and then ended. While in this instance, it was me who admitted having feelings for and wanting to become closer in a romantic way with Orion, at no point did we ever do anything sexually intimate outside of sending flirtatious messages within that time frame and outside of it. And it was also me.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, keep in mind, Kwite's younger at this point. I don't know how old he is now. In 2017, let's see Kwite's age. I'm not saying this for, like, pedo sake or whatever. There's no pedophilia going on at all. I'm just saying this for, like, maturity's sake within Kwite, right? So it says he's born 2000, so, oh, his birthday's coming up, March 30th, 2000, so that means he'd be 22 now. He would have been 17 at the time, I assume. I think Orion was the same age. Yeah, I mean, being that young, like, it makes sense, like, that, you know, someone's being so flirtatious to you on Discord, and you just got broken up with someone you cared about, like, obviously you would, you know, feel like you want to give that a shot, right? Just, like, as a little bit of a rebound, especially when you're that young. I don't know. It makes sense to me. But
who called off taking our friendship to that next level of intimacy because I was, again, the one getting cold feet from my nerves around the situation. My apprehension when it comes to sexual contact is not limited to Orion. Not only did I never have sex with him, I have never had sex with anyone. Even as of recording this video, I am still a virgin. It has been a long-running insecurity of mine. Due to my general focus on work, the pandemic killing the ability to pursue anything in that vein for years, as well as causing me to backslide in my social ability and confidence like it did most people, a fair few of my friends have had to deal with me drunkenly venting about my nervousness around it. And it's something I have had casual discussions with my friends about nearly a year and a half after Orion claimed I had raped him. The part in those DMs—
So this part, like, I guess this is like a bombshell to a lot of you guys, and I guess it would be to me too, but like, the night this came out, I obviously talked with my friend, who's, again, best friends with Kwite about this, and, that was one of the things that, like, immediately came up, is like, Kwite is not capable of sexual assault due to, you know, his feelings around sex and the fact that he's still a virgin, right? So, this has been told. This isn't like a new narrative he's making up on the spot. Like, this is something that people have known about for a while, right? Or his close friends have known about, right?
Where I mentioned me getting my penis sucked one time was in reference to summer 2018, right after my senior year ended. I was talking to a girl I was friends with from my school who had thrown a graduation party.
Okay, what's going on here? Dude, there are so many receipts. Like, my brother asked you who you were, and I said my boyfriend because I panicked, sorry. Heading over, okay.
Where we ended up making out. One of the nights after, I ended up at their place again, and I got fellatio from them. I told my friend Ethan that we didn't go any farther because I didn't have condoms on me, but what I didn't mention was that I had her stop the oral early because I couldn't feel it or get my penis entirely hard. I can masturbate on my own just fine, but—
What? Dude, okay, he's not doing anything wrong here, but, like, I guess it's required for this defense. Is it required? Are these details required for a defense like this? Are these details required? I mean, okay, so I mean, I guess that would deny any, I guess you can't rape if you can't get hard, right? So, like, oh my, okay. Let's keep going.
When it comes time to do the deed with someone else, my nerves have stopped me from being able to perform because I have incredibly bad sexual anxiety when it comes to the actual physical act. It's to the point where every time I've been in a real-life sexual situation, it has caused me to be the one to back out of them before it can ever fully progress to intercourse. One person I did mention this insecurity to was Orion, who in late 2017 I vented to about an earlier incident where a boyfriend I had at the time was giving me a hand job and I just could not get it up all the way or finish. I was already an insecure teenage virgin, and I was stupidly embarrassed about having these performance issues. So I essentially begged Orion not to share what I confided in him. Me and that boyfriend tried more than once and never figured it out, and my unsuccessful attempts to get it up persisted until just 3 months before the alleged rape, at which point me and my then boyfriend had broken up, so I was not doing it with anyone at all. That is a major issue I would have had to figure out very quickly in the time between those messages in February when Orion says the assault happened. Further showing he knew about this still persistent issue and insecurity of mine, you might remember a message I showed earlier where he poked fun at me for my dick not working in regards to me not wanting to meet up with Orion down south. The cold feet I get with sexual contact is something I've had another stunted interaction because of as recently as February of this year. The last day I was in Brighton in early February, I was making out with a guy who I got on with in a club named Club Revenge. But I chickened out of doing more and left the club early because I was nervous and I had a flight home in the morning. It was to the point where he even offered to come over just to keep me company because of how anxious I ended up getting in the club. This has been a continuous issue, not just with getting it up, but engaging in sex in general that has made me
when did the allegations come out? February 22nd, so I assume this... There's no way he could have done this, like, as a preemptive move to, like, you know, be like, oh, I'm gonna, like, reject this guy's advances so I can prove myself as not a rapist in the YouTube. Like, there's no way. Unless he heard that Orion was going to come out about this before, I don't know. That would be like some crazy mental gymnastics there. I doubt that's the case. But, I mean, it could, I guess, if we're going to explore all possibilities. But I don't know.
Incredibly anxious to go all the way with
that. Would be 4D chess. It would be. Even as the receipts from the club or whatever. Fuck, man, this is so weird. I mean, I feel like this is not even something I can comment on, like, the validity of, because everyone has so many different sexual experiences, and, like, some people, like, the relatability and, like, putting myself in his shoes is just, like, not there for me. I don't think I can properly comment on this. I just have to take his word for it, because I'm just like I'm thinking like, oh, he can't get it up, but like he was kissing guys at a bar. I really don't know. All right, I just don't. So I'm just not gonna put any doubt or confidence in, I guess, that. Fuck.
At all. These examples might seem sparse, but there are so few because they are genuinely the only times I have ever been in a situation close to actual sexual intimacy, with me failing to follow through every time. Part of this anxiety stems from me having also been sexually assaulted in the past, both before the time Orion alleges I assaulted them and after. Once by a coworker over twice my age when I was 17 and working an awful fast food job, and the other was in a club when I was 19 by someone who thought I was more into them than I was, but didn't bother to check before putting their hands on me. Pain is not meant to be compared, but I do know what it's like to have your agency taken from you and to feel helpless to do anything about it. Being told over and over again I did the worst version of that to somebody else when I know what it feels like from experience has been soul-crushing. In his twit longer, Orion...
Fuck, I can't comment on that, because it's like... It's his experience, and he's obviously, like, brave for, like, being so vulnerable in this video, not only showing his face, but going in depth about all this stuff in order to vindicate himself and stuff, but, like... And I'm sure he means, like, the word... I don't know what he means by virginity, though, because, like... Do we... He says he was sexually assaulted, and he says he got his dick sucked, but then he says he's a virgin. I guess virginity counts penetration, so maybe he was assaulted in an oral way or hand job way or whatever, I mean, I guess I would count that as losing virginity, but maybe to other people isn't. Do we have, like, does it have to be penetration to be virginity? Because, like, technically, if that's the case, like, lesbians can never lose virginity because they never, unless I guess they peg each other. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I mean, it's what is it? It's a grammar issue. It's like a verbal issue or vocabulary issue. Like, in terms of what happened, like, I guess I assume he was sexually assaulted either orally or whatever, because he doesn't consider oral losing virginity and he says he's a virgin. So I guess I'm getting caught up on, like, pointless word detail, but that just, like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm looking too far into it. Whatever.
Orion says that when several months passed after the falling out, that he tried to come out about the alleged emotional abuse he suffered, but that he received harassment and calls to his house telling him to kill himself for it, which only worsened his mental state. This is in reference to a video I've used several clips of so far while making my arguments that was uploaded by a YouTuber named Tuspicious, and at the time of the upload went by Oceanus. If Orion was harassed and threatened for being in that video, I completely and harshly condemn those actions, and Orion should never have been put through that. If people out there did those things, they should be ashamed of themselves and know they have no safe harbor in my community. I have never and would never instigate or support this kind of behavior. That video is something I have never acknowledged publicly until now. This is because I viewed the video then and still do now as an attempt to put my reputation into question by saying anything that its creator could think of. Whether it was based on shaky evidence or even no evidence at all, it didn't matter. It was designed to get a reaction out of me. That video was called Giving Kwite the Axe, and Tusk explicitly said in the video it was made with the goal of destroying my career.
This species is called a Kwite. He is often located in a bland setting and can be seen wielding an item whilst recording. It's time to give the axe to his career.
In it, Orion gave a
That is so cringe, bro. Oh my god, the guy who made that video, bruh.
spoken testimony about their timeline of knowing me and the apparent emotional abuse I did to them. That testimony was the only thing he gave to support his claims back then, much like the current allegations. Both times, Orion said a whole lot and gave next to nothing, or literally nothing, in this video.
Maybe we should watch that video, because obviously he's gonna cherry pick parts of that video, and maybe there's like a point in it that he's upset. I don't know. I just find it really hard to believe that Kwite is being, like, manipulative here. Like, obviously I'm looking at this with a critical lens and trying to see any, like, holes that there might be, because, like, you know, to go straight to Orion's lying, I think it's just, like, unfair to them. But I mean, I just find it real, like, like, if Kwite is guilty and he made this and he did make this video, if Kwite's guilty, he's, like, sociopathic for making this video and lying that much, right? But I don't think he is. I don't think he's lying. Like, I believe him. But I don't know, man. I mean, there is a possibility that he could be, like, completely psycho. I don't think that's the case, though. I'm, like, literally, like, I'm 95% on Kwite. I don't know. I'm biased. Literally, I'm just biased because my friend, my very close friend, who I believe wholeheartedly is a good person, has good intentions, and would never lie to me, says that Kwite is innocent. So that's... But also, like, what I'm seeing here, like, it would be too insane for Kwite to be lying. Like, if Kwite's lying and he has this archive dump and he has all this, like, evidence, like, he is insane if he, like, he's, like, crazy if he's lying. But, who knows, I guess, fuck.
Video's case to substantiate any part of his claims. The video is littered with falsehoods, outright lies, and contradictions of Orion's current version of events. For example, the clip I
It'd be John Swan levels of insanity? No, it'd be, like, 10 times worse than John Swan, right? Now, John Swan was convincing at lying and digging himself a hole, but what he lied about is, like, not even comparable. Like, he didn't lie about rape. He lied about dream... What was it? Like, dream... Something Dream did or something Dream said. that wasn't a lie, you know? It's just not even comparable.
Showed at the start of the video, where when discussing the day we met up and watched Black Panther, Orion described two completely different versions of events, both tonally and even how he felt about the event after the fact.
It was fun, and I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, "Just remember, I really care about you."
What was completely missing from that video was any mention of sexual contact at all. I don't mean just sexual misconduct, I mean any account of us having any physical intimacy at any point. What Orion did do was publicly out my struggles with self-harm.
I wasn't his best friend, but I was one of his closest. I helped him through self-harm, which I'm still susceptible to.
This is something that I have never at any point before that video was uploaded, all the way till now, ever spoken.
Boblex, just because your friend finds him innocent doesn't mean you should, laughing my ass off. I agree, which is why I don't think he's 100% innocent, but, like, he gave me, like, examples and his thoughts, and it was, like, in-depth, and, like, you know, obviously I trust my friend, but obviously he would be biased towards Kwite, so I'm keeping that in mind too, and I don't have a definitive opinion yet, but just like, I am biased towards Kwite in a sense because of that, and I can't shake that, right? So I'm just like, I'm just trying to be transparent in my coverage of this, like, yeah, I'm trying to see all sides of it, right? And hopefully I'm doing a good job of that, but also I do have that inherent bias because one of my good friends is vouching for Kwite, and he's known Kwite longer than he's known me, and like I trust that guy like with my life. So I'm just trying to make my bias, my slight bias known. I've never talked with Kwite, but that's just the situation we're in right now, and I don't want to, you know, I still want, like, Orion's, you know, arguments to be out there, right? So, like, I'm trying to cover this in the most fair way possible, but also, to be fair, I would need to announce my biases, because if I were keeping them secret, then, you know, you couldn't trust me to have fair coverage of the situation, right? Let's double check Orion's Twitter. See if there's anything new. We have this from like 30 minutes ago, right? Hey, I haven't seen the full video yet, but I've noticed quite a bit of lying in the first 10 minutes, so I've realized I need to show my diagnosis. After I post this, I'm logging off for a while, but there's undeniable proof that what I said did. Thank you, everyone, for your support. So let's read this right here. We have a licensed psychologist, a brief psychological summary. You know, Orion's date of birth is January 2000. So basically, Orion's only 2 months older than Kwite, so if there's any, like, questions about age gaps, that should not be in the conversation, because, you know, they're only 2 months older, right? Dates of service, June 2021 to today. Orion is a 21-year-old transgender male who self-referred for individual psychotherapy due to onset of panic attacks, dissociative episodes, and intrusive memories of a sexual assault they experienced in 2018. Orion reported experiencing the following symptoms, which are consistent with the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. Recurrent unwanted distressing memories of the traumatic event, reliving the traumatic event as if it were happening again, flashbacks, severe emotional distress or physical reactions to something that reminds the person of the traumatic event. Trying to avoid thinking or talking about the traumatic event, avoiding places, activities, or people that remind the person of the traumatic event, trying to avoid thinking or talking about the traumatic event, avoiding places, activities. Oh wait, that's repeated. Why does it say both of those things twice? Whatever. feeling disattached from family and friends, feeling emotionally numb, overwhelming guilt or shame, trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating. The current severity of Orion's PTSD symptoms is moderate, and symptoms have interfered in their daily functioning, especially when triggered. When triggered, Orion experiences panic attacks and or dissociation in which they are unable to focus, concentrate, or complete tasks. At times, Orion has had to leave work early or take an unscheduled break in order to calm and ground. I guess it's like grounding themselves, that's what it means. Orion is currently receiving trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy once a week to treat symptoms and to assist in appropriately processing the trauma sexual assault. However, Orion may require certain modifications and allowances in the work and school environments, such as frequent breaks, the ability to leave work before end of shift without penalty, extensions on homework assignments missed due to effective functioning, and opportunities to make up missed exams until symptoms reemit. Should there be any further questions or information needed, please contact... Okay, don't fucking contact the psychologist. I mean, under here is the psychologist's signature. You see a bit of it here. I'm not going to show any of that because, like, I don't want the psychologist to get harassed. You know, some dipshits looking at this tweet are probably already going to contact them. So, but yeah, that is the official diagnosis from the psychologist that says, yes, Orion does officially have some form of PTSD due to this event, but that doesn't necessarily... Does that confirm that it happened? You know, because, like, it confirms that they have mental trauma over the incident, but maybe that just means Orion interpreted it as sexual assault, but that doesn't mean it was sexual assault. I don't know. It's fake? It's fake? Well, I don't know about that. Well, there's no proof that it's fake or real. If any proof comes out to either way, I'll put it up on screen. I'm not saying, like... I'm just showing all the information. My personal belief on the situation, which I'm still obviously leaning towards Kwite, is largely irrelevant. I'm just showing you guys all of the facts so you guys can come to whatever conclusion you feel is most correct based on the information out there. Speaking of which, let's continue with Kwite's video.
And publicly about or ever intended to. It is one of my deepest and most personal struggles that Orion was willing to expose to the public without a care just because it became useful as a tool to hurt me with. And it feels like, considering what he says later, to hold over my head that he knew about. Throughout the video, Orion continuously drives home how good of friends we used to be before saying how many secrets he had on me.
So
is Orion their legal name? Okay, so Orion is a transgender man, so the name that they had before that would be their dead name, which is the name they were given at birth when they were born as a female, at least physically born as a female. So it's not really their online name, it's just their new name, but I guess legally they haven't changed their name yet, maybe, and that's probably the reason it's in quotations, right?
after he didn't respond to Discord messages, I texted him on his phone because I had his phone number, as well as I'd met his parents, I had his address. I have a lot of secrets on him because we were best friends.
This video came off as malicious to me when it was first released and still does now. Considering the private issues of mine Orion was willing to share about me in public, I feel like nothing, even just a passing comment, would have been off the table. And yet any mention of sex...
Literal child. Okay, keep in mind the audio he's playing of Orion there is from 2018 when Orion was 18. And probably early in their transition or hasn't started their transition yet. I don't know when their transition started, so that is why there's the higher pitch voice there. I'm sure Orion's voice is probably much different now, especially if they've been on testosterone for whatever amount of time.
Sexual contact is completely absent in any form from his previous testimony. In that testimony, from the jump, Orion gets the timeline of events objectively wrong. In the video, Orion says we met in early 2016.
I met Kwite early 2016, around about January, because it was around about my birthday.
This is instead of early 2017, like he says now, and all records point to the latter being the case. This directly puts the timeline he gave back then off by a year. You could excuse Orion as having misspoken, but it's a mistake he makes every time he mentions what year something happened in.
But then we started to get really, really close. Especially around about summer of 2016, we met up in my home city.
When that actually happened was in summer 2017. Orion's current version of events agrees with me that we had first met both online and in real life in 2017.
Cut to planning to VidCon. We met up in February of 2017. Cut to February where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther.
Orion implied Black Panther came out in 2017. He says cut to February 2 separate times, but only mentions what year it was once. He either means that I met up with him only the one time in February 2017, which was when we would have watched Black Panther, and is objectively untrue, or he added an entirely new instance of us meeting up, which puts an extra year on the timeline of our friendship. Either way it was meant, his timeline of these alleged events would be objectively wrong and at odds with his current version of the allegations. If you think I'm nitpicking with the years, this isn't an issue exclusive to raw dates, but spans of time as well. In the video, Orion says I started ignoring him for 2 weeks after seeing Black Panther.
2 weeks later, he randomly starts ignoring me.
In his current version of events, Orion said that several months had passed after Black Panther before I cut him off. The reality is closer to Orion's original testimony, but both are still wrong. The call where we fell out happened on March 20th and was almost a month to the day after we had last met up on February 18th. My contact with Orion had petered off into almost nothing only a week before, but we did still occasionally message. In the period of absolute silence where I didn't speak to Orion through text, call, or otherwise at all was only 3 days long. Orion also claimed I called him out of nowhere.
In the middle of a call with one of my dear friends, The Right Opinion, I get a call from him. And I think, oh, finally he's made some time. He's not busy anymore. When
in reality, I was returning the single call Orion had given me over those 3 days only 2 hours after he had originally sent it. Towards the end of his testimony, Orion had this to say about what he did after our March 2018 call.
I texted DM'd a shared friend of ours, asking if, just because Kwite doesn't like me right now, if we could still be friends. Obviously, Kwite had talked to him because he then sent me a 5+ paragraph note about how disgusting and selfish I was. He told me a lot of the things that Kwite had told me.
Tusk shows the screenshots of this.
Wait, so is this video where she has the interview and expose on Kwite? He didn't link the video in the description, is it? Oh, giving Kwite the axe. Oh, here's the video. So is this interview... Yeah, this interview was in a video exposing Kwite, so if she was exposing Kwite before I was saying, like, okay, so this video came out a couple months after the alleged incident, or not a couple months, like half a year after the alleged incident, and in it she was saying she was saying she wasn't, or he was saying, Orion was saying he wasn't raped by Kwite in this video exposing Kwite. And initially I just thought it was like a general interview, and I'm like, of course he wouldn't mention the rape because it's like so fresh, maybe they're still on good terms. But this is Orion trying to burn the Kwite bridge, so don't you think Orion would come out with that as well in this video? I don't know, man. Pronouns. I'm sorry, I'm not intentionally misgendering. You guys know that. Come on. Yeah.
At the end of the video, where it's revealed the friend of ours was Kappa Kaiju, who it sucks I have to name in this, but I don't feel I could properly make this point without doing so. Orion said that Kappa's opinion was a result of Kwite having talked to him already.
Obviously, Kwite had talked to him because...
And I had spoken to him first, but the nature of that discussion and what Orion did to prompt it is very important. In that March call, I was giving Orion, to the best of my ability, a level-headed explanation of why I wanted to cut them off. He was codependent, he was a drain on me emotionally and mentally, and he had long gotten in the way of A, my efforts to take care of my own mental health, and B, live my life. Orion told me that he apparently noticed I'd been withdrawing from my older friend group overall in favor of new people. At the time, I could see there being some truth to this. I was hanging with some new people more, others less, but I was still in contact with plenty of folks I'd known for years in that community, a whole lot of whom I still talk to today. It was nothing actively malicious, but I could at least understand it from his perspective. But then he says that the mutual friend, Kappa, had agreed with him that they see this happening too. That was the first I'd ever heard of that. If it was true, if multiple of my friends are noticing this about me, it's like, whoa, am I the problem? So I asked. It turns out Kappa never said that, at the very least not in the way Orion presented it to me. When Orion messaged Kappa about it, he specifically led with, hey, do you actually like me, like as a friend? Because Kwite backstabbed me. I want to make sure we're still friends. And Kappa, who I feel was understandably not happy having his name and word used to try and back me into a corner, didn't respond lightly. He shared his actual outside perspective of me and Orion's relationship, and if you read the whole thing, agreed with basically all my reasoning for removing Orion from my life. And also
Jesus, okay. So this is like, I guess after Orion exposed Kwite and used Kappa's name to... Jesus. Okay, this is okay, fuck. I don't want to read all of this right now. I mean, just glancing at it, it looks like it's what Kwite says, so I don't feel like there's a need to read it all in depth.
If you read the whole thing, agreed with basically all my reasoning for removing Orion from my life, and also behavior that lines up with what you can see going through all of our message logs. For the most part, the rest of the video I haven't covered is Orion's claims I was emotionally abusive and would verbally batter him, while giving vague examples of what he claims I said with no solid proof to corroborate any of it. I'm not sure the reasoning for this part, but the history of this video's availability and publication status is notable as well. The original title in 2018 was Giving Kwite the Axe, Terms of Service Breach, and More, and then at some point in the last few years between then and now, it got unlisted. That is until recently, when these new round of allegations came out, where Tusk republished the video with a new title, Giving Kwite the Axe, Transphobia, and More. A notable thing to do, considering that since this video was old and made no mention of the alleged transphobia back then, it was a misrepresentation of what was in that video. Around the time he republished it, Tusk made a tweet with a video attached, a video I didn't manage to archive, unfortunately, but at least in the tweet caption, he promoted his newly titled and republished video, saying in it that he and Orion had talked about what Kwite had done in the past all the way back in 2019. Except they didn't. That video was made in September 2018. I can only make excuses for these two misspeaking so many times. In regards to everything around the original attempt to give the axe to my career, Tusk and Orion failed to get correct even the most objectively provable parts. What was interesting is Ethan deleted that tweet soon after making it at the apparent request of Orion. Not long after this, the YouTube video itself went unlisted again for a short period after that tweet got made. You can see it unlisted here with the new title and all, before it was finally republished a third time, where as of writing this you can still view it. If anything changes though, it will be archived with all Orion and I's message logs in the description. Orion's pushiness was also not a dynamic unique to sexual situations. Orion would often push the limits of my other explicit personal boundaries if he wanted something that crossed them. And there were times I'd eventually cave after he repeatedly asked me for it, even if I was overall uncomfortable with the request. As a lot of the time, saying no hadn't been enough up until then, and giving in would get him to stop with minimal conflict and without me having to try and explain in detail why specific things make me uncomfortable. For example, Orion said this in their twitlonger. Kwite had a rule that I wasn't allowed to take any pictures of him, but he was allowed to take pictures of me. After promising and begging to take a few pictures that wouldn't and still haven't been posted for memories, he let me take a few before he left. Then later Orion says, I have a video with him to prove we were together at the time that I was able to post only for myself after begging him to take pictures with me because we were friends. Firstly, there was never some rule set up like that, and I didn't take pictures of Orion on that trip. Even if I had, their face was in the public and was something he had willingly shared before I ever would have taken these hypothetical pictures. How this section reads to me is that I had set a hard boundary of not taking pictures of my face. This was because that even back then, I was a faceless creator hoping to maintain that anonymity and had anxiety around any of my personal details getting shared with the public, whether that was through someone leaking them or an account someone used being compromised. But instead of respecting my set, stated, and acknowledged boundaries, Orion kept pushing, saying stuff like we're friends and that I could trust them with those pictures because of that. That's behavior he admits doing on multiple occasions. I agreed to do something I was generally not okay with to try and accommodate something Orion wanted because it seemed important to them. And the part where they said they still haven't posted those pictures anywhere is a lie. Not only did Orion obviously post the pictures of my face because of this current situation, but he also shared them around to people I didn't know at least around or before September 2018, as well as sharing other photos of me that I had taken of
All right.
myself just around or before.
Yeah, so Wallace is my friend. Wallace is my IRL friend. And this is from 2018. I haven't talked to Orion, but he's talked to my friend. They went by she at the time. She talked to and explained DMs, apparently sent this. Damn, okay. But yeah, Wallace is my friend, so there you go.
September 2018, as well as sharing other photos of me that I had taken of myself and only shared with a select group of people. Orion might not have posted them publicly until now, but I think taking pictures of my face that he assured me I could trust him with and sharing those pictures with people I don't know is a breach of that trust. And the way he has now used those pictures to dox me and make these kind of false accusations has proved that my initial fears were correct. Going back to boundaries over physical actions, on Skype around April 2017, Orion said he wished he could hug me when I was going through something tough. I let him know that the gesture was appreciated, but that platonic touch was complicated for me, and I generally only wanted to cuddle or have that kind of contact with whoever my partner was at the time. Prolonged contact was my main issue. I was generally fine with hugs of greeting or goodbyes and more casual forms of touch. I have improved with time on this, and I am more tactile with people that I'm comfortable with now, but at the time, this was a boundary I had clearly and directly communicated to Orion. And to his credit, Orion did try to specify that whatever affection he had for me was platonic. However, just a few months later, when we first met up in June 2017, that respect didn't really hold up. You could argue that this is less serious considering that it was the day before we got together, but we also then broke up the day after. And at the time, the line was drawn clearly at platonic touch being uncomfortable for me. And for most of the day, it wasn't a problem. Orion would certainly do some casual touch, but I didn't really mind, like a hug when we saw each other, an arm on the shoulder. That wasn't a problem. Important context to this is that Orion's dad chaperoned us from location to location pretty much the whole day. He was skeptical of his kid meeting a random dude off the internet in real life. He made a point to be there when I first met Orion, would only let Orion be in his car when driving to different places, and when we ended the day at his house, me and Orion stayed in the living room watching a movie the whole time with him in the room at almost all times as well until I left to drive home. I had absolutely no plans to do anything physically intimate at this point, and it's here where Orion crossed my boundaries in a major way.
Wait, so during the alleged assault, Orion's dad was there? What? Wait, is Orion's dad gonna have to come out and like expose their own son as a liar? Orion's dad was there? Can we get like proof of that? Like, you know, Orion saying like, oh, too bad we couldn't do anything because my dad was there, lol. Well, apparently there was a kiss because they went to the store to get the plush and she's like, oh, if you buy it for me, it was a she at the time. He was like, well, if you buy the plush, I'm gonna have to smooch you. And then he did smooch. So like, was the dad there for the smooch? Was the dad just watching the entire time? I'm like a little confused. I'm sure it makes sense if I like slow down, and this is just a lot of information to process. I don't know. I'm sure it makes sense if I like look at it more in depth, but maybe he's talking about like his dad or Orion's dad being there in a different scenario. I don't know. If the dad was there, wouldn't that be the first thing you bring up, Kwite? Like, the dad was there. The dad knows and nothing happened. I don't know. I guess the dad wasn't there at the Black Panther movie. I don't know.
The photos Orion leaked of my face, specifically the ones where we're at his house, you can see I'm not the one initiating contact in any of them. I'm hanging off towards the end of the couch and Orion is constantly leaning on me. When we sat down to watch Moana with Orion's dad in the room, Orion put his arms around me in a full embrace and I froze up. And he stayed leaning onto and hanging off me for the whole runtime. Again, Orion's dad is there through the whole thing. He's followed us and kept track of where we are the whole day because he's concerned something would happen with Orion. And from the very first time I messaged Orion all the way up until that point, Orion has only ever described his parents as annoying, that he butted heads with them.
Okay, here are we gonna have proof of the dad being
Often,
there?
Till that point, Orion has only ever described his parents.
Okay, you can probably at him. I love listening to the obnoxiously loud audio of my dad's shitty movie while I meticulously tried to shade something.
As annoying, that he butted heads.
Go for it. My mom makes me so mad. She's always in my business and always seems to be looking for something to be mad about or punish me for. Okay, so it's just them being annoyed at their parents, but this was in 2017, not 2018. I'm confused. Did they meet up like twice, like once in 2017, once in 2018, where the alleged essay happened, or was it just 2018? Wait, when are the Moana
race? And I froze up. And he stayed leaning onto and hanging. I'm hanging off towards the end of the. He was curious when I was going through something.
Like,
I let him. He wanted issue with Tom. I had whatever routine together. Touch will contact. At any throws or contact in of my face.
Okay, so these. I want to know when these are from, because these are from when the dad was stalking. All right. Oh, okay, that's a bad way. I don't mean it in a bad way. This is when the dad was supervising, right? So what, okay. Imager. Okay. Where's the, what? Where's the, okay, here. June 2017, okay, so the dad, okay, so we got it. The dad was supervising them in June 2017, but then when February 2018 rolled around and they met up again, that's when the alleged assault happened and the dad wasn't there all the time. Okay, so the first time they met up, June 2017, dad is there supervising. When the alleged SA happened, about a year later, the second time they met up, dad wasn't watching. All right. Okay. There we go.
Specifically the ones where we're at his house, you can see I'm not the one initiating contact in any of them. I'm hanging off towards the end of the couch and Orion is constantly leaning on me. When we sat down to watch Moana with Orion's dad in the room, Orion put his arms around me in a full embrace and I froze up. And he stayed leaning onto and hanging off me for the whole runtime. Again.
Dude, Kwite's opinion of Moana and Black Panther must be so ruined from these experiences. He's like, they're good movies, but not a fan of that. I don't want to rewatch them.
Orion's dad is there through the whole thing. He's followed us and kept track of where we are the whole day because he's concerned something would happen with Orion. And from the very first time I messaged Orion all the way up until that point, Orion has only ever described his parents as annoying, that he butted heads with them often, and he told me his parents were both physically and verbally abusive on the regular. With all that in mind, I was incredibly anxious, to say the least. I'm trying not to move a muscle or do anything that could be interpreted as me reciprocating or making a move because the dad is right there and I'm under the impression he's on a hair's trigger. Orion knew I was uncomfortable with this kind of contact. He knew his dad did not like seeing him do that with me. And it made me feel like I was being used as a tool for Orion to stick it to his father. A type of, look at what I'm doing right in front of you that you won't do anything about. I know you hate it. And they did that at the expense of my boundaries and my sense of safety in that moment. You might argue, did you really care if you told Orion you had a crush on them the next day? But that wouldn't change that this was not the case when it happened and that I broke it off with Orion less than 2 days after. That was a scenario I did not enjoy being.
That's kind of weird. Wait. You're only interested in them platonically when they're leaning on you and trying to cuddle you. Then the next day you say you have a crush on them. Then the next day you say you're gonna break up. I mean, that could have happened, but I did to give to give benefit of the doubt to Orion here, that is a little weird. That's a bit strange. It's a bit, I don't know.
Being in, and I was relieved when the movie ended because it meant I could leave and get away from the position I'd been forced into, the way I had been used for someone else's grudge. There were other minor incidents of Orion crossing this line in the time after when we were explicitly not in a relationship. After Orion went down a spiral of questioning his self-worth and asking me if we were still friends, he said that when we meet up in February in the same conversation as the come on bedsheets message, that he requires snuggles. And considering that he's just vented to me about not knowing if I still care about him, I don't want to say something that might make him second guess himself and go down that hole again. So I told him okay. But when we got closer to the actual day, it was still not something I was 100% on. The day before we met up, he told me the same thing, and my answer was another uncertain.
Okay, it would make sense if he's basically terrified of physical intimacy. Oh, okay, so he had like a crush on her or him, and then but they didn't want physical intimacy. Take an IQ test. I don't know. I'm a little out of it, guy. To be fair, I'm a little out of it. I'm just trying to like, I don't know. I don't have much to say because like, I agree with everything Kwite's saying. I think this is like pretty solid, right? I think this is just like solid, tight, really good response video. I don't know. I'm pretty much on Kwite's side, but you know, I'm just pointing out the odd things that could, I don't know. I just want to give benefit of the doubt to Orion. I don't know. I'm commentating. I'm analyzing this video. Whatever. I gotta say something. You know, I don't know.
We'll see. Even on relatively minor things, Orion would not take a very direct no or denial as a final answer the first time around. In 2017, I had a now deleted Discord server that I started when I was much smaller and had below 1,000 subscribers. I was basically just giving admin and moderator roles to my friends and the people I knew at the time. Since even though it was a community server, it was a very small one where most everyone knew each other and that didn't need a dedicated team. In January 2018, Orion asked me to give him a rank with authority in the Discord server. At first, I declined because I had multiple people already in the role he asked for, but as he continued to ask, I eventually gave it to him because he said he just wanted to help send out notifications for my videos. It's when my channel numbers started snowballing and more people were joining, I realized that having a bare-bones server with only friends as staff wasn't really going to cut it. That original decision wasn't because of anything personal to Orion, it was because of that reasoning. As the community scaled, he just wasn't the type of person I wanted in that position of authority. I'll admit, I probably could have communicated that better at the time. I don't remember if we had any discussions about it at length in calls, but after I removed Orion's role, he, I assume jokingly at first, sent a "how dare you demote me" message, which was fair enough. It seemed lighthearted. Not long after that, I had noticed Orion putting personal details of mine in my Discord server. It was admittedly benign ones at first, like that I had a trampoline, but at the time it was something I was very cagey and anxious about, so I let him know not to do that. That's not something people are usually concerned about leaking on.
Alright, so there's some people in chat like, Boblacks be like, Orion spitting facts and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just... Though, to be fair, I think the only things I've questioned in this video, which, to be fair, I'm mostly just questioning for the sake of, you know, adding some conversation to the video outside of just, like, playing it, because I pretty much agree with everything Kwite said, but the only things I'm really having questions on is, like, stuff in regards to, like, his sexuality and how he feels, which is obviously, like, something that I can't relate to fully, because we all have different sexual experiences, we all have different sexual... Well, not all of us, but different people have different sexual orientations. I'm not gay, and I haven't been, like, fully in similar positions that Kwite has been in. I don't have, like, the same issues he has with, like, you know, touching and all that. So, like, some of it just doesn't make sense to me, right? But I'm not saying that it's incorrect because it doesn't make sense to me, right? I'm just pointing out that, hey, that kind of doesn't make sense to me, but just because it doesn't make sense to me doesn't mean it's not true, if that's what I'm saying, if you get what I'm saying, right? I don't know. I miss the old Boblax. Boblax coming out as straight. No, I'm very much pro Kwite, as I said. It's just, you know, like, the whole, like, cuddling, not being comfortable with it, then saying they want to, like, date them, then breaking it off, like, a day later. He was, like, 17. It's just indecisiveness. It's a little weird. I'm just pointing out that, but I don't think it disproves anything. You know, I don't know.
Online, so I didn't blame him really, and Orion seemed receptive. Except just 10 minutes later, I have to tell him to stop again because he was telling people I was a bottom, and that hadn't clocked to him as personal. It was a bit frustrating, but again, I let it go. The next day, Orion again tells me to give him his Discord rank back, and I give a non-answer, a tentative, I'll think about it. Where after that, Orion then lists a bunch of reasons why he should have the role. Then, not 5 minutes later, he shares information that, while definitely vague, is language I was not comfortable with being used about me in public at the time. This conversation is where the looks part us meeting up is fine message that Orion showed is from. As back then I had a video that is now deleted talking about in part when I first met up with Orion. That was something I had revealed publicly, so it was fair game to talk about. Orion was describing me as a cutie in my Discord server, and I understand that's another weird thing to consider sensitive information, but my headspace as an anonymous creator just starting to get any traction was to be overly cautious. Orion seemed to understand this and asked for some do's and don'ts about what he could share about me, which I appreciated. But after that, Orion asked if he can @ me in the server if he has a question, like something he wants me to respond to publicly in general chat. I told him to ask the question he wanted answered in DMs, and it was very nothing burger stuff. So I tell him no straight up to doing that publicly because it could cause other people to start pinging me in the server over random stuff as well. At this point, Orion has shared multiple pieces of what I considered personal info, and I had to tell him to stop more than once, though you can argue that one's on me. But he also wants to be able to ping me in my public server to ask random questions he wants me to give a public response to. I'm not thinking he's evil or anything because of this, but it felt like to some extent he was using his ties with me to gain notoriety in that community. At the very least, this wasn't the type of person I wanted modding my server at the time, so my mind was made up and I wasn't going to give him his rank back. 2 weeks pass and Orion asks me for mod again, and I miss it the first time, so he asks again. I'm finally giving him a straight up no here, to which he in all caps says, "I will fuck your ass." And I'm trying to keep the conversation light but still get the message across, so I tell him no again to stop spamming and call him a nerd as an insult of affection after, kind of like he'd been doing through that conversation already. He still isn't understanding though and keeps telling me to give him mod aggressively, so I put it as straightforwardly as I could, stop asking. And only after that did Orion finally cut it out. This was roughly a week before that call in March 2018 where me and Orion fell out and stopped talking. Throughout this entire active situation, Orion has demonstrated a consistent pattern of lying. At one point in a tweet after releasing the initial twit longer, Orion said that I had deactivated my Discord account, but that luckily he got recordings of it, that I was deleting my side of all the messages. These recordings only showed that the Discord account he spoke with was mine and nothing else. I have no idea why Orion said this. He didn't show evidence for that claim, which isn't new, but it's so provably wrong that it's dumb to say if you aren't absolutely certain about it. I showed as much by posting a small update in my Discord server, just saying that I did not delete my account and that I was working on this statement. When Orion got caught being wrong on that, he changed the story to me apparently having used a bot to delete my side of all our Discord DMs, insinuating that I did so because I was trying to cover up the truth or I had something to hide. I don't know why he said that either, because it also isn't true. Orion still didn't prove it, and it's very easy to show that. When I go to mine and Orion's Discord DMs, the entire history of our messages is still there. It was all still accessible from my end before this whole thing, and it definitely will be after. I went ahead and archived the entire year plus of mine and Orion's Discord conversations, as well as all of the text messages we've ever sent each other. And you can look through all of them yourself at the link in the description. Some details in the messages are censored for obvious reasons, like both mine and Orion's personal information, as well as the names of people who are not a direct part of this. Orion claims that I kept most conversations we had to voice calls and to texting on Skype because messages deleted on there after a certain amount of time, implying that I was trying to not leave any kind of paper trail on purpose. This is part of Orion's attempts to paint what he alleges I did as premeditated, that how I behaved in all our interactions was to put him in a position where I could supposedly take advantage of Orion. What might surprise you is that alongside our texts and Discord DMs, I have also dumped all of our Skype messages that you can look through as well. Even if disappearing messages was the reason I had some apparent preference for Skype and not the major feature it had that Discord didn't at the time, video calling, the version of Skype we used back then didn't actually delete messages, it just stopped them from showing up in chat. The only messages that Skype would fully erase back then were the ones that got manually deleted by a user, and even then it was only a sure thing if it was a text message. On older versions of Skype, the pictures you sent to other people and in group chats would save to a media cache on the recipient's local hard drive indefinitely. I managed to get all our messages and most of the images sent in that time frame together. I'll spare you the long version of the process.
Okay, guys, the memes in chat, dude. I'm dead! I don't know what to say. I just believe him. I don't know. I guess he's talking right now about the fact that messages can be deleted or not. I mean, do we gotta watch this whole thing? Do you want me to like skip ahead? I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say. I just believe him, dude. I just believe him. Unironically, a good response, yeah. Call Nick. I would love to have a conversation with someone about this, like Nick or Augie or whatever. But they'll have to reach out to me. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just keep listening, and if I have something to say, I guess I'll say it.
But if you want the details on how I got these so you can cross-reference the methods I used, they are on the screen for you to pause and read now, and will also be attached as a document in the file folder containing all these archived messages. The claim that I kept discussions to mostly voice calls is false as well. Throughout the entire time we talked, Orion was by far the one who initiated conversation the most. This would most often be in the form of messages asking if I was around, calling after I gave the affirmative, or calling being the first thing Orion did to reach out to me. Oftentimes, if I missed the first call because I was busy or otherwise didn't see the notification, Orion would call me several more times throughout the day, or even just one after another, before finally moving on because I wasn't answering. Orion was in control of how we spoke at most points because he was the one starting most of the conversations in the first place. There are examples of me saying I'm only able to text and him requesting to call anyways. And despite that, I agree, because he sounds like he's in distress and I'm trying to be there for a friend in whatever way they need me to. None of that is inherently bad on its own, and there's not a problem with preferring call or text, but to completely reverse the truth of the matter by saying I'm the one who actively preferred voice calls, framing it like I did that all intentionally as a master plan so there was no record of our discussions, is complete fiction. Orion alleges that during the March 2018 call, that during our fight, I called him a, quote, D-word who...
So, yeah, I was told that, should I say that? I was told that Kwite does prefer to have voice calls, but I don't think that's proof of anything, as he said right there.
Who thinks she's a boy and will never be. In addition to this, Orion claims that he told me his dead name before we met up for the first time, only to be used around his transphobic parents to maintain his cover, but that after learning his dead name, I would apparently use it to belittle him. Both of these are false. Orion's old Twitter got suspended, unfortunately, so I could only ever recover my half of our conversations, but they are also available in the link in the description. But in every message I've sent to Orion on Discord, Skype, through text, or Twitter that I can still get my hands on, all of which you can look through yourself.
You like to talk, you're so guilty. True, like, how is that proof of anything? Like, different people talk in different ways. There's a lot of people I've talked to more on voice chat than on text, and vice versa. Like, honestly, I'm someone who probably prefers to talk in voice chat too. The usual only times I DM someone is if I'm saying just like one quick thing, or I'm planning to set up a call with someone later or a stream with someone later or whatever. Like, I talk mostly in Discord calls too. Does that mean anything? Not really. Like, it doesn't mean I'm trying to hide information. Right? I'm just calling. We're just talking. I don't know.
You will not find a single instance of me A, ever misgendering Orion at any point, or B, referring to him by a name other than Orion, as well as like the general gender-neutral words that I still use for everybody I know. While Orion did tell me his dead name, I have genuinely forgotten it since, because I never used it outside of the context he told me to. I can only show you that I never did it in text, but I also never did it through voice calls or in person. In fact, the only person you'll see using an insult of this nature towards Orion is Orion himself. Orion would often go down depression spirals that he would end up messaging me during. And these usually turned into him doing a lot of negative self-talk, just disparaging himself in all sorts of ways that I would be trying my damnedest to walk him back from. During one of these spirals in April 2017, almost a whole year before Orion claims I made the D-word comment, he said a nearly identical thing about himself that I immediately say is not true and try to counter-argue. Just like...
I mean, there you go. Like, you can't really get... As for the other stuff, like, yeah, it's hard to definitively prove, that Kwite didn't do what Orion's claiming. But this directly shows that not only was Kwite not saying these transphobic things towards Orion, but Orion was saying them about himself, and he was reassuring them, saying it's not true. So that, like, these DMs, like, completely contradict, you know, an allegation that obviously is not as big as the rape allegation, but it's probably maybe the second biggest thing they talked about in their twit longer, and this, like, directly combats it. And if that's directly combated and proven to be a lie, then everything else in the twit longer you can also assume would be a lie, right? I think this is super damning against Orion. Let's see if Orion has made any new tweets. Currently, look at the replies too. Nothing yet. Like, this video is airtight, my dude.
Identical thing about himself that I immediately say is not true and try to counter-argue. Just like I was doing for every comment Orion made about himself before he called himself a D-word and continued trying to do until the end of the episode. And I was doing all of this no matter how many times Orion said something to try and shoot down my attempts at reassuring him. There is a single message that I could understand if you interpret it as being derogatory or hurtful to Orion in the same way that the D-word or dead naming him would have been. And it's a message where I call him a Lebanese communist. That was followed up by me saying logic as in the rapper Rules with a Z, which I feel shows the tone of that conversation was not very serious. But the Lebanese part was not autocorrect or a typo, and using it in tandem with communist is important to the meaning. As the reason I said that specifically was because I had genuinely been hearing stuff about the real life and historical Lebanese Communist Party. Since it was something I'd consumed recently, my brain jumped to that as a silly sounding combo of words to a person who'd never heard it before. If you don't believe me, or that seems like a convenient cop-out to avoid responsibility, I understand. It may seem like a stretch. But later in that same conversation, after Orion said that I like to bully him from the third person, my next message was saying that all he had on me was Asian slurs. If you don't know, I am half Filipino. Orion was aware of this, and it was not a super rare occurrence for Orion to refer to me as a chink or make jokes about Asian stereotypes that were aimed at me. I thought there was more, but I couldn't find any in our Discord logs, just in the Skype chats, and I didn't get any screenshots back when we had these discussions, so I have no way of knowing if I'm misremembering or if Orion might have gone back and scrubbed it at some point. It would just be speculating. But even at the time, mutual friends of ours would ask if I was bothered by Orion making Asian jokes about me as often as he did in voice calls.
Whoa! Orion confirmed racist? Even pointed out by other mutuals? Uh-oh.
Saying those messages, it bothered me sometimes, but I want to make it very clear that I do not hold anything against Orion for these individual comments or even as a whole. I was not very concerned by the remarks about my ethnicity back then, and I'm still not today when looking in hindsight. In fact, Orion explicitly asked me if I was okay with him joking about it, and I told him directly that I was fine with it. Hell, if you go through our messages, you will definitely see me say some weird...
Whoa. Wow, dude, so edgy. I mean, okay, this was like back in the day, though. Come on, and they're like 17 back in 2017. Of course, they're gonna be a little edgy here and there. I think the fact that Kwite doesn't hold like the racist comments against Orion is really telling, because you know if Orion was hi iNabber, this is quite the situation. Yes, dude. Yes, it is. That was like one of the first tweets I made about this when it came out. But you know, if like Orion had Kwite being racist towards them as a joke, that would definitely be in the twit longer. And the fact that Kwite is not like putting this against Orion, he's like, hey, Orion made these racist comments, but you know what? You know, I was okay with it. It was mutual, whatever. Like, the fact that he did that, I think, is very telling in terms of his intentions versus Orion's intentions, right? And we have definitive proof that Orion was making edgy racist jokes. We don't have definitive proof that Kwite was being transphobic. We just have word of mouth. And that was directly contradicted by the message he showed earlier, where it was Orion being transphobic towards himself and being self-deprecating, and then he was like, no, you're great. So, wow. Nick's foreshadowing was on point. Yeah. For sure.
edgy stuff that, even if it's taken out of context, is not something I'm proud of, especially when having to read it back. The reason I bring this up is to show how absurd it is for Orion to even raise this as a point against me. By the logic he used with slurs and bigoted action I've never actually even said or done, he would be guilty of the same thing. Not only are his claims of me being transphobic false, I would have been 17 at the time this happened, and it is hypocritical of Orion to try and condemn these comments he says I made in the manner that he did without mentioning the fact he also showed comparable behavior towards my immutable characteristics. Ones he did not share with me. Orion says that we were close and would mutually confide in each other.
Sounds weird, but the lie that really caught me off guard was the lie about the Sona creation. I know it's random, but why would Orion make such an obscure, disprovable lie up like that? It's insane. So I'm assuming this is like addressed later in the video. We're only 42 minutes in. Maybe I missed it because I'm not gonna lie there. I was kind of like, this is a long video and I have ADHD and I was kind of, you know, not paying as much attention as I should when we were watching a bit of the stuff earlier. But yeah, I don't know. I guess like there's like a lot of things in the twit longer. I'm not high, by the way, guys. I'm just yeah, I'm just a little dumb sometimes. But basically, like, in the twit longer, something I really noticed is there's a lot of, like, and there's a great point brought up by Einabber, is that there's a lot of, like, weird kind of cloudy things put into here. So, like, this is a twit longer about rape, right? But amongst the rape, like, even before and after the allegations made in this twit longer, there's, like, a lot of weird, like, kind of, like, cloudy type arguments being made, like, oh, I made Kwite Sona. I made it first. Or, oh, Kwite is trying to take advantage of the fact that I have friends that are more popular than him, and he's trying to steal my friends because they have more subscribers or whatever. Like, stuff like that. And I found that, like, very odd, definitely at the time of the allegation as well. He outright disproves this thing Orion said about creating the Sona. Kwite had a video unlisted where he dressed up as the character weeks before he even knew Kwite. Okay, or Kwite knew Orion. Okay, thanks for that update, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and you guys may think, like, I'm bringing this up, like, oh, hindsight is 2020, now that Kwite made a video and it's being well received, now you're saying this. No, it's like, I've had these opinions about the allegations since they came out. I said in my video, like, I'm gonna wait for the Kwite allegation. I just didn't want to say anything like, you know, kind of definitive or what have you, because I knew Kwite was making a response video. I didn't want to step on his toes by saying anything out of line. Obviously, I talked with his friend Wallace, who's my friend as well, so I knew some information that wasn't, you know, privy to the internet yet. Like, I knew he was a virgin before he made his response video, and I knew a bunch of stuff from the response video. So I just didn't want to step on any toes or what have you, but now that he's come out with his response, obviously, now I'm kind of retroactively saying what my opinion was on the twit longer when it first came out. Yeah, there we go. Einabber W, yes! Yes. For sure. Einabber has always had a good head on his shoulders, even throughout, like, other situations, you know, where he's always been pretty genuine and trustworthy and transparent, and he has been in close proximity to a lot of these scenarios, like the friend groups of, you know, Slazo or Kwite or I'm Alex or whatever's going on. So, yeah, I definitely appreciate Einabber in this community, yes. But let's continue.
In ways that were beneficial to both of us. And while we did both confide things in each other, the idea that this was an equal dynamic and not heavily skewed in the direction of Orion dumping heavy emotions onto me is absurd. And the idea that we mutually benefited from it is completely ridiculous. I'm going to give another spoken content warning here because this subject matter in particular is grim. Warning for graphic discussions of self-harm, discussion of many forms of abuse, suicidal ideation, and topics in that vein. This is a hard one. Me and Orion have very different accounts of what I said to him when I cut him off. Orion claims I attacked him for immutable characteristics he couldn't control, like his gender identity, and I maintain to this day that I criticized his character and behavior and told Orion I was removing him from my life because of the way he acted. We do agree on one thing I said.
I've got to say, though, this video is so well scripted. Like, every word he's not stuttering. Every word that comes out of his mouth is, like, so, like, pristine and crisp and to the point. Like, I feel like a lawyer looked over this and was like, yep, or people were reviewing the videos. We always hear, like, people make these huge videos and they make scripts and friends review them, and then it comes out and the video was bad, and then it's like, oh, the people who reviewed them were shit. Like, the best example is probably the Just Stop video on Ellis Mark. Like, everybody was like, a lot of people reviewed it, Daft Pina, a bunch of other people, and then it came out, and, you know, everyone agreed it was shit, right? So, I'm glad to see that a video, especially of this importance, responding to, obviously, a rape allegation, was probably reviewed by a bunch of peers, and the review process was actually good, you know? It wasn't like, wow, I can't believe this was missed, or what have you. Like, this is a very well-scripted video. And, you know, for how long this video is, too, like, getting this out in 3 weeks, I don't know, man. It must have been stressful for him. A whole month working on this, like, getting into the dirt, looking at all the receipts. Yeah, you know, he has fucking... How many screenshots in this, what is this? This Google Doc. Like it's just insane, like 400 screenshots here. It's just like, you know, he's doing a good job.
Though, and it's that one of the reasons I gave to Orion for ending the friendship formally was that he was codependent towards me. I know he vouches for this because he mentioned it in that old video.
He proceeded to berate me and call me all kinds of really...
And he's so goddamn, like, thorough, too. Like, even when he cuts out, like, little uhs and ums, which I do all the time when I'm, like, clipping down videos or streams to show to you guys. He even says, clip trimmed for brevity, original in the description. Like, he's not... Like, any questions that whatever anybody has, like, the research is there for us to, like, verify his word, right? Like, I don't have to take his word at face value. I can go back and look at the original video if I wanted to. You know, he said it was clipped up for brevity, but he's not hiding the original, you know, and he's having everything available. And again, like, most viewers aren't gonna check all of this stuff. So, like, I guess he could technically take this, you know, clip of Orion speaking, cut it up disingenuously, and then say he's cutting it up for brevity and to look at the full video, but no one's actually going to look at the full video, so they just believe him at face value. But, you know, he probably also knows that there's fucking insane people, like, investigators in this community, like me, who's going to double check and make sure and stuff, so, I personally don't think that's the case there. I don't know, I just appreciate the thoroughness. I Never says, I basically lived with Kwite for a month or so in 2019, and I know how much he values his privacy, so it's genuinely so sick and twisted, that he's had all forms of privacy destroyed like this. Exactly, right? I was, now, like, the face thing, like, I can't relate to it that much because I've had my face public for a really long time, like, before I got big on YouTube, and, like, that's, like, a level of privacy that I don't, like, fully relate to. I guess getting face docs is pretty bad, but what I really feel bad for with Kwite in this situation is more so him having to, like, reveal his, like, is issues with sex, like his sexual anxiety and stuff like that. Like, I feel like it's really fucked up that he had to, you know, basically say that, like, a girl jerked him off and he couldn't come. Like, it's just... I mean, it's better than being called a rapist, obviously, but it's just sad. And hopefully no one bullies him for that. I'm sure it'll become, like, a meme or something where people are like... Well... It's more like, if he's guilty, it's more likely to become a meme, but it looks like he's innocent, so hopefully people won't be like, haha, your dick doesn't work or whatever, right? But still, the fact that that's a possibility, that people can do that, is just fucked. It shouldn't be public at all. Like, I wouldn't want my sexual, history or what have you, or any of my private life in that way to be exposed. And, it has been to small extents in the past, with the Edwin situation or whatever, but that's still scratching the surface, especially compared to this. So I definitely feel for him for sure in that regard. FPS Diesel says, very pissed, Kwite needs to show his face. Every time we hung out, we knew never to photograph him. It was established and set with everyone. Yeah. But, his face probably would have came out sooner or later. It just sucks that he can't do it on his own terms, right? Or, it should be his decision. It shouldn't have to be forced upon him, especially in a situation like this, right? Yeah, okay, let's continue.
Rate me and call me all kinds of really bad names and call me disgusting and too codependent and needy.
And he complained about it on his private Twitter the day after we fell out. When someone sees you as their best friend, typically they go to you first with their problems. That's not codependency, you absolute tool. Maybe to an extent that's true. I think it's a nuanced thing, but that's just not what Orion was doing. On February 2nd in 2018, before we met up that month, there was a conversation me and Orion had that I feel encapsulated the nature of our friendship and how Orion viewed me over the course of it. We had a short text exchange where I said I was busy prepping for a podcast I was about to stream and that I had a video to edit afterwards, so I didn't really have the free time to hang. I let Orion know I was busy and I got back to it. A few hours later, I'm wrapped up with the podcast and Orion hits me with, hey, can I ask you something? Apparently the thing that brought this on was that when Orion listened to the podcast that day, the conversation I had with the guest sounded too good. Essentially, I had gotten along with them so well that it made Orion scared I wouldn't be his friend anymore. In other words, the sight of me having other friends or even being friends...
That's psycho. That's so stupid. That is so dumb. I hate it when people do that. I would never want to be friends with someone who just gets jealous of me being friendly with someone else. That is huge red flag. And I'm friends with most people. I'll be friends with some people who other people, rightfully so, have criticisms towards them. I'll be, but that's just, that's too much. That's a huge red flag to me.
I wouldn't be his friend anymore. In other words, the sight of me having...
I wouldn't be friends with Orion after, if they said that, to me.
Other friends, or even being friendly with other people, came off to Orion as a threat to our friendship. A message like that can get me worried, as I'm sure it does for a lot of folks. So I tell him to go ahead, and he asks, am I important to you? Genuinely. I'm not being passive-aggressive, I just need to know. You can point out that Orion specified he was acting genuinely, but this is not the setup for a scenario where if these are real concerns around the topic, you'd be getting sincere or untainted answers about it. I was already worried Orion was in a bad spot, so when he asked a question of self-doubt like this, even if I did feel the way he fears, I was scared of what would happen if I said it and felt guilty for even considering it. I'm trying to reassure him that I do care for him because it was the truth at the time, even if it had been waning in recent months. When questions like this came up, Orion was very prone to start spiraling and saying awful things about himself. So my knee-jerk reaction was to think he was in distress. A fair assumption because he explicitly confirms it in the very next line. He goes on to say he is loathing himself and isn't sure if he matters. In that situation where it has been made clear I was talking to someone in a vulnerable state, I was scared of what would happen if I did anything other than try to reassure him. The setup was basically saying, I don't feel any value in myself about this thing, so I need you to constantly reassure me about it so I can keep feeling it from somewhere. And I wasn't sure if this person I know can be a danger to himself was going to do something drastic if I didn't fill that role. In the right amounts and in hard times, it is natural and okay to lean on your friends to support you. I did it all throughout these last few weeks because having my face plastered everywhere against my will with the false label of rapist immediately attached to it is emotionally taxing, go figure. But with Orion, it was a continuous thing. He'd ask if the good things I'd said about him applied to him now so he could hear me say it again. He would then express his insecurity again, which would prompt me to reassure him more. And then he asked if he can be selfish, which I'd argue he was already being, but I give the go-ahead because I'm seeing Orion in emotional distress. And the thought of saying no made me feel guilty and scared of what would happen if I did. They'd go on to say that they don't feel good enough and that they think I deserve so much more. And after everything they have just told me, I am not going to tell a person saying these things that they're right. I'm already shit scared something bad will happen even when I'm trying to to say these positive things about them. I felt pressure to give the same validation I've had to multiple times this conversation and before it. Orion would repeat the same line, put himself down, saying others are more deserving of my time, which left it to me to build him back up all over again. Orion said he was scared of losing me, a fear, again, that he said came from just seeing me with other friends, or worse, that he was keeping me back, framing himself as a burden. And so here
I definitely feel Kwite in this scenario, because, like, I have such a fucking soft heart for people, like, and I would have been thinking and reacting the same way if someone was messaging me like that. Like, obviously, I just said, like, oh, that's a big red flag if they're jealous about someone else's friends, but I would probably interpret that as just, like, a spike of self-doubt that they got that they don't really actually think, but, like, and then I'd, like, help them work through it, I guess. That's realistically what would happen. I wouldn't cut them off right away. Like, I definitely feel for Kwite in this scenario, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, like, these DMs and these conversations, like, they pretty much definitively prove that, like, Kwite, what were the initial allegations? That Kwite was being, like, toxic and, like, transphobic and stuff like that. Like, I don't see any ounce of toxicity coming from Kwite here in these scenarios. Now, later, after this video, we can check all the screenshots to, like, make 100% sure, but genuinely, like, I just think, like, even if we can't definitively prove if, like, Kwite sexually assaulted this person, like, I think all of the surrounding evidence and, like, the fact that they're kind of, you know, painting Kwite as a bad person, but there's evidence to the contrary, and all, like, the surrounding evidence regarding the event, like, I think Orion's lying. Now, do I think Orion is, like... Now the question is, like, what if Orion's wrong, which is probably the case. The question is, what are his motives? And, you know, he does have, like, the PTSD diagnosis from the doctor, and, you know, I don't doubt that they've been going to therapy since 2021, maybe specifically for this moment, but maybe, like, Orion is over-exaggerating the events in his head, and it's creating this false reality that they do legitimately have PTSD over, but didn't actually happen, so... I don't know, like, that's the best benefit of the doubt I can give Orion, is that this is just, like, not out of malice, but their feelings have eroded the facts of the situation, right? That's literally the best I can give him right now. I know this might sound cruel, but if someone did this to me, I don't know about how they're feeling. I'm suing them into the ground. Yeah, honestly, if Kwite goes that route, I can't blame him. I never also said, this just seems like a jealous, toxic friend who can't handle their former friend moved on with their life and became successful and loved, and they can't handle... Yeah, that's probably, like, an aspect of it, too, right? Because, like, Orion was close with Kwite. They wanted to be with Kwite. Kwite kind of rejected them in a way, and then started, like, getting different friends and moving on to a different friend group or whatever, just naturally, as any people do. You know, I've, you know, been close with people, and now I'm not as close with them online. Like, I've been online for, like, 10 years, so obviously people can come and go. It's a natural thing. And maybe Orion feels, like, jealous and mad that Kwite has all the success, and, you know, Orion had a chance in maybe his mind to be with Kwite, but it didn't work out, and he wish it did, because then he'd be in a cool position of being the boyfriend of a popular YouTuber, but now that isn't the case, so now they're mad, and now they're like, okay, if I can't have you, then you can't have what you've built, right? Maybe it's that. I think that's, like, a very high possibility. And I think that's probably way more plausible than what I said, where it's like, they actually do believe that this happened and have created this like false set of events in their head that has triggered them. It could be either. It could be a mixture of both. I'm definitely more leaning towards Einaber's theory, though. He says it's really sickening as someone that covers actual serious real situations, seeing like this happen again and again and again. It's absolutely mind-numbing at the moment, and just search real victims. Yeah, I agree. And it's like, fuck, like, it does hurt real victims, because there's so many people, when the Kwite situation came out, that came out in, like, support of Orion. They're like, yeah, like, it's horrible that men do this to people. I defend Orion. Like, this is a real situation. We got to hear them out, and stuff like that. And, you know, that's a pretty good mentality to have, because sometimes victims come out and they're not believed, and it's important to you know, give support and benefit of the doubt to someone who comes out with an allegation like this in the case that it is true, but it's going to be harder for people to do that when it's been consistently shown that a lot of people are lying about this. And it also gives people the false impression. This is what really bothers me. It gives people online the false impression, like viewers, that majority of allegations that came out of sexual assault are false. That's not the case. Majority of allegations that come out against YouTubers and big content creators of sexual assault is probably like 50-50 on whether it's true or not, right? I don't really know the exact stats, but there is a high chance that it's false, right? When someone comes out against a YouTuber. But in real life scenarios, the chance of a rape victim coming out and lying is slim. Because what can they if it's not a public content creator that they're calling out, what realistically can they get out of that? Like, yeah, maybe they're doing it for money. Yeah, maybe they just want to ruin this guy's life, etc., etc. But usually someone who goes to that extent to, like, report it and, like, you know, all that stuff with someone who isn't in the limelight, it's usually because something did happen, right? And I feel like a majority of allegations that come out against people for sexual assault, overall, the victim is usually right, but with the YouTuber and content creator stuff, it's obviously different because there's that element of, like, attention that comes with it, and the fact that so many of these do come out as false, it'll give people the false image and false idea that this is what it's like for all sexual assault cases, like, and that's not the case. It's only within the creator space because there is this element of clout. So, yeah, like, the more false allegations that come out against YouTubers, it hurts not only the perception of women coming out online with their experiences, but real victims, but also victims who, you know, are doing this in private, you know, like maybe, you know, someone you know or someone you know from, like, secondhand or whatever. I don't know. And maybe they'll believe them less because of these situations. It sucks. It sucks. Yeah. Legit at this very moment, Onision is being sued for SA. It's definitely 50-50 for creators. 100%, yeah. But I do believe that there are... Yeah... That is just, it's important to not necessarily believe victims 100%, but it's important to not immediately peg them as a liar, and it's important to hear them out, let them say their piece, and it's important to hear the other person's piece as well. You know? So, yeah.
I am once again in a corner where I have to emotionally prop Orion up so he can feel validated externally where he doesn't feel it internally. I kept trying to convince him I care and said that I feel guilty for not talking to him more, and looking back, that's not good. That is a problem. Guilt should not have been what was driving me to make myself interact with somebody. It should have been a genuine want to interact with them. It's having a good time with somebody versus feeling like you owe them your time, where if you don't give it to them, you feel like a bad person. The conversation continued along those lines until Orion just straight up says, I care so much about you and I would be next to nothing without you. Orion hinged his sense of self-worth on what I say to him, and as a result would rely on me to provide validation that he couldn't find within himself. That is so unbelievably toxic, because now I've been been made responsible for another person's sense of self-worth. If I leave, I feel like the asshole because Orion told me how much he needed me, and I'd be proving the fears he trusted me with and that I said weren't true to actually be correct all along. Even though any of the commitments of never leaving or assurances of us still being friends were made when I was speaking with someone I was afraid might hurt themselves if I hadn't done that.
This is so relatable, dude. I feel like so many of you guys in chat have to have been in the scenario where it's like, you continue talking with someone and being friends with them because they emotionally depend on you so much. And like, you care about them and you enjoy hanging out with them, but that emotional dependence just becomes the majority of your conversation and relationship with them, and then you just become a pseudo-therapist. Like, it's happened to me so many fucking times, especially since I have such a soft heart. And like, I'm not saying that that's like the wrong, like, you can be in that scenario and it could be like a phase and then you get through it with the person like within a month or so. Like, I don't think you should abandon someone the second they become depressed and start venting on you. Like, I really don't believe that, but yeah, relatable situation for sure.
Is emotionally draining on any person and honestly borders on abusive. That conversation was towards the end of our time talking to each other, but it was by no means new. Behavior like this came up early and throughout the whole year before I finally found the will to do something about it and cut off Orion. This type of codependent behavior was a recurring thing. I'm going to be hitting on a broad timeline over the year we knew each other, because if I covered every instance of this happening like I did those last messages, it would take a while, and honestly I don't have a great time going through and reliving these any more than I've had to already. Orion's pattern of oversharing personal and intense topics started in our earliest conversations. He mentioned being annoyed by his dad very often in one of our first exchanges. Then after barely talking for the next month, only starting to speak regularly in the few weeks after that, and only having known each other for 2 months total by then, Orion came to me in distress saying he felt like he needed to come clean to me about something.
Okay, by the way, Einabber, if you don't want me to like consistently read your messages on stream, like, you can tell me. Like, I know how annoying it can be to like have the check mark in chat and then you say something and then the streamer responds to everything you say and you don't necessarily want them to respond, but you did know Kwite, so I do feel like it's important to read out what you say, but just keep in mind that if you don't want me to, I understand. Anyway, he says, I think sometimes you try to help someone, but then sometimes you almost become an emotional punching bag because they think that they can say everything due to being nice in the past. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because sometimes, like, I'm in chats and I say certain things and I'm like, I don't want you to read out all of my chats just because I stand out. Like, come on, let me be a normal chatter. Like, but yeah, I just want to make sure on that. Anyway, let's continue.
And that he didn't have anyone else. That put me on edge. It seemed heavy, and I'm apparently this person's only option. I'm thinking that if I'm not there, then he's got no one else. So I tried to be an ear for him even if we barely knew each other. Orion then trauma dumped about his self-harm this early into knowing me and told me he relapsed that night and he hated himself for it. I am flailing to comfort him despite having no idea how to do this kind of thing. And since he had said I was the only person he had to go to, it felt like I had to leave the door open for him to feel comfortable reaching out to me again. Otherwise, in the future, Orion might just hurt himself instead. A few days later, and I hear more and more about how Orion doesn't get along with his parents, until eventually Orion vented to me about how controlling his mom was and wouldn't let Orion do anything ever. Orion was berating himself here as if he was uniquely bad for having the reactions he does, and that was when I started first sharing deeper than surface level personal stuff. I was trying to relate to Orion in some way so he felt less alone in his pain. I would not usually talk about these things with someone I knew this little, but this is someone I've known for 2 months who my most notable interactions with were him being very distressed and defaulting to me for help. I felt like it was the only thing I could do to try and get Orion to stop spiraling on an issue like that. Just a month after that, Orion told me he was being physically abused by his parents and described it in detail. Coming out about abuse and asking for help is not something to discourage, but it's a lot at once for anybody, especially when it's coming from someone I've only known for at most 3 months. Orion even acknowledges this in the conversation while I'm trying to ease his mind about how it's affecting me. I was trying to make sure he didn't feel guilty for reaching out and then would potentially leave to go go do something drastic. Orion did warn me this was a heavy subject matter before venting about it, but after learning he was being physically hit minutes earlier and are actively distressed now, I'm even more scared than usual that Orion might hurt himself if I didn't stay with him. So I said yes and tried to be there for Orion until he was out the other side. Another week passed and Orion messaged me frantically. He says his parents were hurting him again and I am in panic mode because after knowing this person for only the last few months, he is suddenly ideating suicide in front of me. Orion was describing the method they used, calling himself a coward for not going through with it. He said he wished he was more suicidal like normal people so that he could just go through with it. Orion's telling me no one would miss him, not even me, all while I'm trying to fight back against every single one of these things. Every time I tried to tell Orion he has inherent value.
I mean, as if there wasn't enough proof before, like, this, like, so definitively goes against the narrative that Orion was saying, where Kwite was toxic, transphobic, a bad friend, etc., rapist. Like, this just goes, like, against all of that, like, so definitively. Like, he tried to stop Orion from killing himself. Like, you can't get more, like, I care about you as a person than that. I suppose you can, but you get what I'm saying. Like, clearly Kwite did not have any disdain towards Orion. Obviously, probably does now due to allegations, but, like, when the time that they knew each other, right?
Value and it's still worth living and that people cared about him, Orion would shoot it down. He would tell me that I wouldn't miss him for long, even though I'm pouring my heart out trying to show him otherwise. I hate having to read these back now. I had my own mental health issues that I didn't deal with well at the time, and on top of that, I was now stressing that my friend was going to kill himself if I'm not there when he says he needs me. I felt trapped, like there were no other options but to try and help this person whenever he asked, because otherwise I might be leaving him to die. In comparison, the time it took me to open up about personal issues was much longer after I had already been through multiple of Orion's vulnerable moments, and often only in response to Orion describing these same issues first, in an effort for me to try and show him he wasn't alone in what he was going through. Early on, Orion would offer to talk with me about stuff like this, and I would thank him, but still outright deny his help. I've always been more cagey and contained about talking about these issues in regards to myself, and it wasn't until early April 2017 when I first really vented and went back and forth with Orion. It was over a very graphic discussion about self-harm, which I have censored here. It is both personal and grim, so I don't want to show the details, but Orion gave genuinely helpful advice on how to try and not self-harm again, and I really appreciated it. I did for sure trust Orion with some personal issues in parts of my life, and I would talk to him about it fairly regularly, but it was...
Okay, so obviously this was years ago, and Kwite is in a better place now, but genuinely, like, watching this, like, I feel... Fuck, I don't know the guy, but I do feel proud that, like, he was able, not only, like, considering he was, like, he had, like, suicidal tendencies at least 5 years ago, or maybe even recently, I have no idea, and he's being called a rapist online by thousands of people, losing 70,000 subscribers, completely intense, yet he still pushed through and made this video. Like, I kind of feel proud of it. I don't know, like, I don't know him I don't know him at all, right? But, like, I don't know, it just shows that he's mentally strong to get past that, and, you know, I'm glad that he didn't do... I'm glad that this video came out instead of, you know, him doing self-harm and something drastic happening, you know? Like, good on him for that. Usually with a video like this, you get a dude proving himself wrong, but, like, and admits to some minor things, but this doesn't even have this. It's just Kwite proving he's a great person. Proving the allegations wrong, yeah. Simp blacks. Yeah, I don't know. It feels weird to say because I don't know the guy, but, like, I mean, yeah, like, I know, I cannot imagine how mentally stressful and draining it would be to have that many people calling you a rapist, and then, like, having to get this video out, and the stress, like, I bet this video releasing is, like, the biggest burden off of his back ever. Like, it's a lot to go through, guys. Like, you can't, you can't underestimate, like, how hard these past 3 weeks probably have been for Kwite, right? Anyway.
Never absolute. I always talked with multiple friends about my issues, some who could directly relate, others who couldn't. At times, Orion would be worried about me, or I asked him if he was free, but he'd be in the middle of something. And even when he said he'd drop what he was doing and tried to convince me to get on a call and talk about it that instant, I would shut it down. Because if I wasn't going through all-consuming stress and the matter could wait, I wanted to balance going to Orion for support while making sure I wasn't monopolizing his time. This dynamic continued at different levels of intensity and frequency, where I was an emotional crutch for Orion. And while I still confided things in him, I was still in general a lot more reserved about it and more likely to manage my struggles on my own or in ways outside of going to Orion. These types of conversations became less common as 2017 went on and were at their lowest from around November 2017 all the way till the end of our friendship in that March. Part of this was because I was genuinely more busy giving one last try at making YouTube work before college, and over time I had been consistently growing into a healthier headspace and becoming more self-confident. All that, and now with a tangible goal I was striving towards, I had focus. Orion claims that his ability as an artist got him in more YouTube circles than me at one point, and that I would ask him to add me to said circles, which he would agree to do for me because I was his friend. He alleges that as I grew myself and made my own connections, the relationship grew transactional. Again, the only thing Orion gave here for me to address is his word, so I'll do my best to demonstrate that this was not the case. Throughout the time I knew him, during these depression spirals that Orion would often fall down, he spoke of how he was afraid of me leaving or saying that I was better off without him. At the time, he would say this was because I deserved better and that I would leave him once I eventually realized that. Every time this came up, I tried to reassure Orion of his value as a friend, not in terms of worthiness or what he could do for me, but because he was a unique individual who I got on with, someone who I enjoyed spending my time with, and because of that, I chose to continue spending time with. He would usually shoot these comments down, but I always advocated that Orion value himself as an individual, instead of putting himself down and acting as if me choosing to be around him was what gave him value. I never thought of doing something for Orion in terms of, well, I did this for him recently, but what has he done for me lately? When I said no to things that Orion asked for, or wanted to do things a certain way without him, it wasn't a matter of transaction, it was because that was how I genuinely felt on the matter. Orion would sometimes try to bargain when I denied him things, and I almost never took him up on it, and when I did, it would be usually to make the conversation stop. For example, if you buy my snacks, I'll kiss you. You don't want that, do you? If I let you buy the plush, you owe me a kiss, being glaring examples. It happened with smaller stuff too. When I had that weekly podcast, Orion really wanted to be on it, but quite frankly, he was just not the type of person I was trying to have on the podcast at the time, so when he asked, I said no. After that, Orion said he'd make an animation for me if I let him on the podcast. I told him if he did do that, I would very much appreciate it, and that he absolutely didn't have to, but regardless, it wouldn't change my answer. There are things from the Twitlonger itself that show the same mindset from Orion, like when he says he made my character stills for free and I only used them maybe once. If Orion had an expectation that because he made the sprites for free, I was meant to use them on the regular as a form of repayment, that was never communicated to me. I even tried to compensate Orion at the time, which they denied, saying talking to them was compensation. If using the sprites was the expectation for them getting made, I probably wouldn't have agreed to Orion making them at all, because I would not have committed to any promises of if the art would get used in my videos or not. It isn't that I didn't appreciate Orion's willingness to make those for me, it's that when it came to making content, I wasn't going to use Orion's work if it didn't fit what I was going for. In my head, those sprites were never a transaction that I was meant to fulfill my side of, but rather something I would implement in my content if it made sense to do so. If Orion felt I owed him something for the work, I would have much rather paid him so that no matter if I used the sprites or not, he would have gotten something for his time regardless. On top of this, Orion spent a weird amount of time taking credit for parts of my success before ever detailing the alleged assault. Because he didn't use his face in his videos, I thought he would have an easier time if I drew him and recommended he wore sunglasses and a face mask instead of manually keying his face out with a black box. There, I essentially came up with his Sona with him and drew various talk sprites. That whole section has almost no basis in reality. This is a deleted video of mine from 2016 celebrating 500 subscribers.
How y'all doing? Hello and welcome to my 500 subscribers special. As you can see, I've put in a lot of effort to ensuring that the audio quality of this video is top notch.
A time and milestone I hit a month before ever first speaking with Orion. There's even older, though still now deleted, examples of me appearing as the exact character Orion drew in those sprites. It isn't something he could have come up with either. I have the original hoodie I used to use here. It was an old brand that had both a hood and a turtleneck.
Can't lie. iNumber says in chat, can't lie. You gotta ask the question: why would this stuff be mentioned in a rape allegation? Why is Sona art debates even coming up in Orion's post? Bruh, this is the weirdest lie. Why would he even lie about that? Yeah, that was one. That was the biggest red flag to me when I originally saw this. And when I was talking to Wallace, the mutual friend between me and Kwite about this, like I brought this up to him of my own volition. So if he wants to like corroborate it or whatever, if you guys doubt me, but of my initial opinion of this, but yeah, those were definitely red flags for me. Again, I didn't mention anything in my video about it because I didn't want to like step on any toes or, what have you. But yeah, definitely those were red flags for me for sure. Like the mention of all this other stuff, like it's like a rape sandwich, dude. It's like the meat is the rape, and there's just a bunch of stuff around it, like bread and lettuce that just does not need to be in there, dude. I ordered a steak and not a sandwich, dude. Give me the meat, and that's it. Bad analogy, but whatever. Fuck it.
Neck that you could pull up to cover your face. It came like this. And the sunglasses were a $1 pair somebody had left behind in the band room at school one day. My whole look as Kwite was me hodgepodging it together as I went along to try and figure out the best way of hiding my face in a convenient way. The black boxes Orion says I manually keyframed in my videos were because the turtleneck on the hoodie was thick and it made the audio quality awful. So sometimes I'd pull down the mask while speaking on camera so my voice could be heard better, and I would do the work to cover up my face again in post. The fix for this was switching to thinner surgical masks, yes, but Orion did not give me the idea for that either, like he claims, and he definitely didn't do so at the time those character sprites were made. I used the turtleneck as a mask until late 2017. It is still in the thumbnail of my oldest public video. Like I said, this was the time right before I went into my final semester of high school, so I decided to knuckle down and give making videos as a job one last go. Because of that, I figured out a less cumbersome and audio-wrecking way to hide my face since I'd be in the outfit more frequently. I even explained this in the first ever video where you see me using a surgical mask in late 2017.
And as usual, I refuse to show my actual face in a facecam video. This time I think I found a way to not sound like I'm being waterboarded. I bought a bunch of these surgical masks, and now I can get slightly less acne on my chin because this thing is 1,000 times thinner than my turtleneck.
I don't really know why Orion decided to take credit for something like this. It's just untrue and it adds nothing to his stance, much less the other far more serious allegations he made about me in that twit longer. It reads to my biased self as more instances where he felt he was owed credit for some part of my success. In fact, Orion describes our dynamic overall in a way where no matter what I did, it was always in order to get something I wanted out of Orion. He said, while I won't say I was the most stable person at the time, I was not actively unkind. I cannot say the same for him. When my abandonment issues would arise, he would leave me ignored, and then when I was having the worst of my time, he would swoop in to save me and keep me under his thumb. He would yell at me or act passive-aggressive towards me when being my friend was inconvenient, but love-bomb me when it was just us or he needed something from me. Again, you can read all of our interactions, you can decide how you feel about them for yourself if you feel the need to, but here it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. When I wasn't speaking with or replying to Orion, it means I was playing off his abandonment issues. But when I saw him in what seemed like severe distress and dropped whatever I was doing to try and support him, then I'm manipulating Orion by only being there for him at his worst. And trying to counter his negative self-talk is now love-bombing, praise that I'd only lather on when I wanted something from Orion. On the whole, it didn't matter if I was present or not. In hindsight for Orion, there was nothing I did right in any situation. Orion claims that a few months...
No, the person I'm mentioning is Wallace. He was shown earlier in this video. He's known Kwite since, for the longest time, longer than me, so... Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. He's a VTuber, Wallace. He makes good videos. You should, let's get to his Twitter. I don't want you guys, harassing him about this, at all. He's a good dude. He's just kind of caught in the crossfire, but he does make good content, so... let's see. Oh, yeah, here. Wallace Prower, VTuber. Oh, he did make a tweet about this. I've known Kwite since we were 11, so seeing the lies spread by Orion has been devastating. No matter how bad the situation may look, always wait for both sides of the story. So true, dude. So true. But yeah, he's a VTuber. He makes good videos. You should check him out. I'll just link his Twitter here, and then you can follow him on whatever else he has. He has a Twitch, YouTube, yes. Great guy. Love the dude. But yeah.
After the alleged rape, when I started gaining subscribers and making larger YouTube friends, is when I began to ghost him more often, all while he was having a BPD episode. Orion says that I eventually called to cut him off, and in that call is where I apparently made transphobic comments that in part almost left him institutionalized. Firstly, if Orion was having a BPD episode during that time, it must have been a trial and a very hard thing to go through.
Yeah, and going back to this, right, like, since he was 11, so Wallace right now, I believe he's 23. I think he's 23 right now. I should know his exact age, but that's like half his life. And that's before Kwite became big on YouTube, for sure. So it's like, yeah. And I again, I trust this guy with my life, so, yeah. It's, yeah, I was gonna make a point, but I completely forgot. But, oh yeah, no, Wallace is a great person, and I know if he thought that Kwite raped someone, I know he would not be friends with him. Like, Wallace, would not be friends with a rapist, like, at all. Like, at all. I could say this definitively. At all. Right? He would never be friends with a rapist. So.
But there was absolutely no way for me to have known that. And again, it was barely 1 month between seeing him in February and cutting him off, not several. I had been ghosting Orion more often over months, but this started well before any of my major success on YouTube, all the way back in November 2017. This was a genuine mix of me being busy from knuckling down on YouTube, but I was also spending time with other people, both online and in real life. People who I genuinely enjoyed being around and whose company made the time I spent with them better. But with Orion, our friendship had been marked in my mind by trauma and intense emotions, me stressing over if he'll be okay over all sorts of things that I can't do anything but worry about, and always trying to be there for him, even when it never felt like what I did was enough, because nothing ever changed. I drifted away from talking to Orion because it was taking its toll on me. It stretched my fraying mental health even thinner than it already was, something that Orion knows I had my own struggles with. March 2018 was definitely when I was ignoring Orion the most, an amalgam of being genuinely happier around other people, little things Orion had done stacking up over time that made me less eager to talk to him, and just general anxiety over how our conversations usually went. It came to a head the day that call took place. In the back of my mind, I knew—
That's dumb logic, Bo Black. It's not like people... Yeah, obviously, it quite wouldn't be like, hey, Wallace, I raped someone, like, obviously. But, like, if he's friends with Kwite for literally half his life, I would assume he would see... If Kwite was capable of rape, I would assume that Wallace would see him in scenarios that could suggest that his behavior could lead to that, right? And he didn't. Like, if he knew that was a possibility, he wouldn't be... You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know someone for that long, you will know if they're capable of something like that, generally, right? I don't know. I guess you can, like... It's not the strongest logic. Like, the reason I believe Kwite is because of the evidence in this video. Let's, like, be clear. The reason I believe Kwite is because of the evidence in this video. But, like, Wallace's word means a lot to me. That's all I'm saying. And, yeah, but the reason I definitively believe Kwite is because of this video, obviously.
Knew I'd made the decision to remove Orion from my life because I felt happier and healthier in the moments away from him. But I still don't know how to talk to him about it, or quite frankly, how he'd take it. As I came to know him, Orion was a volatile person. I'd seen him have extreme reactions to extreme things happening to him, and I got too anxious to do it. I froze up and didn't speak to Orion at all for just a few days. In those days, it was Orion's constant messages across multiple apps, pleading with me to just talk with him and to just say if he did something wrong, as well as a mutual friend of ours shooting me a DM about how badly Orion Orion was dealing with this that eventually pushed me into giving Orion a call to at least try and explain my reasoning. My logic was that Orion had called me that day already, so I'd just be returning a missed call. Plus, he literally asked me to tell him if he did something wrong, so he must be at least open to listening. And while I can't narrow it down to one event that made me drift away, I could at least tell him honestly what I was feeling and try to close this chapter in both our lives in a productive manner. While in that call, I did my best to maintain a level head and communicate to Orion what I was feeling and my reasoning for wanting to move on from him, like he had asked me to. But I never got a chance to express that fully or in the way I wanted, because Orion would talk over what I was trying to say, often immediately denying what I said before I could finish. And then he'd shoot back with his own criticisms of my character. At one point, Orion said he'd noticed a pattern of me distancing myself from my old friends, and that it wasn't just him seeing it, but mutual friends of ours too. Again, I never had any of this said to me by either of the people mentioned, especially not Kappa. I never said anything transphobic during that call, and I did not go in guns blazing. I tried to go in on good faith to close this thing out like Orion seemed like he wanted to as well. Still, that doesn't change that it did spiral out of control, so I eventually ended the call because I had gone in attempting to try and be productive, and it became clear that wasn't going to happen. I didn't get to complete my thoughts. I'd failed to maintain a setting where any good was going to get done, and I wasn't planning on going back on my decision, so I denied Orion's request to try again with a mediator. If what I went through during the friendship wasn't enough, Orion's actions in the days, weeks, months, and at this point years following that call have only made me more certain that I made the right choice ejecting this person from my life. The day after, March 21st, Orion took it hard, and that was understandable. It's not easy losing a friend you felt close to, and I can sympathize with that. But on his private account at Lego Hentai, which is the same vent account Orion has to this day, he said things that I feel were uncalled for, out of proportion, and I feel somewhat malicious in nature. After I removed myself from the incredibly toxic dynamic we had been operating on, everything I ever entrusted Orion with, or he helped me through, became ammunition to fire back at me. I'm just so pissed and hurt I was so supportive of you. I helped you beat self-harm. I helped you with 2 boyfriends. Supported you even before you got big. Met you in real life twice, and then you throw it in my face. Everything Orion had supported me through was now framed as something he had done for me. He helped me with self-harm. He helped me with bad breakups. Orion did those things.
Inaber says, Orion saying that they did not have time to watch the video is insane. You could have destroyed Kwite's life. Surely you have the moral responsibility to stop what you're doing and shows your character. True. I'm not high, guys. Stop gaslighting me. Yeah, like 100%. Like, obviously, like, you can't respond to... Let's go to Orion's Twitter again, right? What is it? Nat... Pudding. Like... I think it's unreasonable to have them to have a response ready, like, right when the video comes out. Like, obviously, they need time to watch it and formulate a response, but they did say they watched a bit of it. Like, we definitely should have a response from Orion within the next 24 hours. Like, 100% there should be. For now, I'm kind of fine with Orion saying, like, hey, I'll have, like, I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to respond as soon as possible. If, like, Orion is, like, choosing not to watch the full thing right at this moment, I think that's stupid. I think they should be watching it right now. But if they say, like, oh, I can't respond this instant, like, I kind of get it, because it is a long video, but we should have a response, like, definitely within the next 24 hours. Yeah, and they definitely should be working on getting that response out now and using it as a top priority, for sure.
For me, so how could I dare do this to him? It had become an almost entirely transactional relationship. He aired this out to people on his private account who I didn't know and directly attacked.
The med docs are fake? Do we have proof that they're fake? I mean, regardless if they're fake or not, like, I still think, like, even if the document's real, I don't think it proves anything, right? All I think it proves is that there's legitimate emotional distress over this situation that Orion's going through, but it doesn't mean that the emotional distress is because of something Kwite did. Maybe it's, like, self-inflicted. I don't know. Like the medical document, whether it's real or not, I don't think it proves anything. Yeah, no, but besides that, Orion is mentally frail, you know? But I don't know.
attached my name to these traumas I had leaned on him for. Not long after that, I approached Kappa and asked him if he had actually said those things about observing me drift away from people in the way Orion said he did. And as you know, he confirmed to me that he didn't, and he was not happy about Orion using his name in that way to try and corner me into feeling like I was in the wrong for attempting to escape the situation I was in with Orion. Orion messaged Kappa a few days later saying I had backstabbed him and asked him if they could still be friends. In the Tusk video, Orion framed Kappa's response as a result of me having talked to him already, and while I was the first to talk to Kappa, he was also just not happy with the way his name had been invoked, where Orion used it dishonestly to try and get a one-up on me. Kappa sent Orion a response condemning his actions and saying that from his outside perspective of watching me and Orion, that he had observed essentially the same behaviors that made me want to remove Orion from my life, and that you can also see demonstrated throughout all of our conversations. On his
Gassy, who's a member, thank you for that, by the way, brings up a good point. Them faking the medical doc proves that we 100% shouldn't believe anything they say from now on if it's fake. I agree. I think there's already been proof, like with the way Kwite treated Orion in DMs versus how they are saying Kwite treated them in the Twit longer. That proves that they shouldn't be trusted with their word, but you know, that would just be another thing to add to the pile. So I guess it being proven that it's fake would matter in adding to the pile of, hey, this person's word isn't trustworthy. But I think that that's already been proven via other stuff that Kwite brought up in this video. Boblex Random, do you ever find it wild how much that the 2016-2017 community still impacts everything in this community? I guess, like, yeah. So the 2016-27 community was crazy because it's like you're in this kind of drama community, but a lot of the people that rose up during that time, including, well, I was this age during this time, but I wasn't like rising up in the community. But like, they're all like, you know, young adults or teenagers, right? Like Kwite was 17 at the time, whatever. And like being a YouTuber, especially like being a well-known YouTuber, especially a commentary YouTuber, because like being a YouTuber back in the day, it's more like with like Smosh and stuff. It's like, okay, we make skits and that's it. But like in 2017, 2016, that's like the first time people became big, kind of while being content creators that are kind of more transparent with their audience, more talking directly with their audience, like a vlog or like a stream or like a commentary video. So I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, but basically like basically because what I'm trying to say is that because the people in that community were so young at the time, and being popular on YouTube with the caveat that you're getting popular off being transparent and trying to be like the moral authority or whatever, put these people in a scenario where they're not there's no like example that they can go to where it's like, okay, this is why we don't talk to fans or reciprocate certain DMs of people venting or whatever, because I learned from this from the Slazo situation, or I learned from this from the James Charles situation. Like, those situations hadn't happened yet, and these people are young, so like it makes sense that a lot of weird things happened during that time frame, and now and that we're still like seeing stuff come out from that time frame in terms of accusations because of, you know, people's inexperience with dealing with things. Like, for example, with Pyrocynical or like Slazo or Kwite, I'm not saying they like did anything wrong in the sense that they like are guilty, but like they did open themselves up to the possibility of them being falsely accused like this because they didn't take precautions to prevent it, because they had no example of what they should do to prevent these types of things from happening. And, you know, it shouldn't be, you know, all the blame should be on the people who did make the false allegations. I'm not saying, oh, it's your fault that you got exposed because you weren't careful or whatever. It's just that it makes sense that a lot of false allegations are coming out from people around that time because they were less protective of who they talked to, right? If that makes sense. Boblex is one of the few yeah, I try my best. I definitely try my best. I'm not gonna like reveal stuff about my personal life, right? But I do try my best to just be as open and honest as possible, even when I make a mistake, you know. Do you believe in believing victims first, or both sides neutral until evidence? I believe in both sides neutral towards evidence, but I'm not gonna act like one person, the person being accused is 100% guilty, or that the person accusing them is 100% lying. I'm not going to be like, fuck Orion, it's probably fake, they probably want it for clout. Even if I think that, I'm not going to say it, because I think it's important to respect everybody involved in the situation and only cast judgment when there's definitive proof and said from either side, right? Yeah, people are a lot more careful now, right, but back then, there wasn't examples to look to in being careful. So that's why people from that community have been exposed and are still being talked about to this day, in my opinion, to answer Einabber's question. He said, I kept my opinions to myself until a response. I tried to do that, especially after Slazo. Yes, I tried to do that as well, because it's like, what do you even gain from coming out with, like, your wild opinion early, right? Oh, you get some attention. Oh, maybe someone will click on your video because you're making a hot take about a new situation. Like, really? Is the extra clicks and all that really worth it? Like, and it's such, like... And to be on, like, a team, to be like, I'm Team Kwite or I'm Team Orion before anything comes out, it's just such a toxic mindset to be in, because then when someone else comes out with, evidence to the contrary, you're going to be coming in with that bias of, I'm already on Team Orion, so whatever Kwite says, I'm going to take with less charitability than I normally would if I'm just going into this without knowing anything, right? So for all of those reasons, I think it's good to have that mentality. And it's why, even though I was of the opinion that Kwite was innocent, I didn't express that opinion until today, right?
Bent account roughly a week and a half after the call, Orion continued talking not about the loss of friendship that he mourns, but what he had the power to do to me. I really wish I didn't have the power I have. I know I'm not going to do anything, but I could. I very well could do so fucking much and it would ruin everything for him. But I won't, and I'm a little conflicted with how I feel about it. Some might say this could be in regards to something big that would ruin me. Perhaps even the assault he claims I committed now. But by Orion's own account of things, both his old and his new one, that is impossible. The tweet was made about a week and a half after our call, and Orion said he didn't realize he had been raped until after the fact in his own twit longer. And he told people asking in DMs that it took a year with his current therapist to realize it as well. The inner conflict Orion mentioned having showed itself in the following tweets, where he vented about how I ruined the good memories, that I snatched this away from him when he most needed it, and I believe tellingly that he still wished we were friends. And despite saying he'd do nothing, Orion went on to do a lot after that. On my 18th birthday, barely 2 months into me doing anything notable on YouTube, this YouTuber named Progress dropped a 40-minute video dogging on me over whatever he could think of. Orion and Progress got their old Twitter account suspended, so it's hard to find the receipts going all the way back, but Orion went on to contact and befriend him, as well as many other people who had shared some general disdain or negative opinion of me publicly. That is petty, but on its own, not really a big deal. The thing is, Orion was sharing his version of events to several smaller channels.
That was another red flag to me, right? And it's like, I can't definitively, like, say it is a red flag, because I think that someone who is a legitimate victim of a YouTuber could also exude this behavior. But whenever someone's like comes out with an allegation against the YouTuber and then starts following all the commentators that are paying attention to them and like trying to like and being eager to give more information, I don't know, it's so risky. I probably shouldn't say this, because there's probably been scenarios where a victim has been like that and like they're telling the truth. But to me, that it's not anything definitive, but it is it's like something I noticed. I'm like, like, you really want to like push this even harder. Like, I get it. Maybe if like it was real, that victim would want to do it as well, but I feel like a more genuine victim would just come out and say their piece and then clarify questions people may have in the responses and kind of leave it at that, not kind of like reach out to YouTubers and stuff like that. But I don't know, kind of risky to say. I don't really think that, I don't think it's definitive of anything, and I don't want, like, if something happens like that in the future where a legitimate victim does come out and they do like reach out to YouTubers and stuff, I don't want that to be used against them. But that is like something that signals to me that, like, maybe the reasons they're coming out with this are not what they're saying in the Twitlonger. So we look at the Twitlonger, right? And something that was really weird to me, especially if, you know, what Kwite is saying is true, that he's still a virgin. Like, in this Twitlonger, they're like, I'm sorry I stayed silent for this, but I cannot be silenced. I'm scared for myself and how the public will treat me, but I'm too scared that I'm not the only victim to keep silent anymore. And then this was probably the biggest red flag to me. Anyone who may have been victimized is more than encouraged to DM me. Like, they're trying to, like, I don't know, this sentence right here, I'm only coming out because I'm afraid there's another victim. If anyone is traumatized, DM me. Like, if you think there's another victim, like, you would have a specific person in mind, right? Or, like, I guess they think Kwite is capable of, like, raping more people or something like that, but I don't know. This is, like, red flag to me.
To use as content for videos. And his targets didn't just stop at me, the person he apparently had the most issues with. After Kappa found some success of his own, Orion leaked parts of their interactions as well to paint what Kappa had said to him as needlessly mean and harsh, even though the folks making these videos had no way to know the full context of why he said that. This Danarchy guy privated all his videos, but he had made one on Kappa in the past using those messages he sent to Orion as part of his arguments. In Tusk's video, you can also see that in the section he dedicated to Kappa, when he shows them on screen, he says he got the screenshots from a Danarchy video about Kappa. And Orion was in contact with Danarchy at some point, as well as being the person to originally leak the messages Kappa had sent him back in March. Also in those following months, I heard from multiple friends on calls that Orion had approached them in DMs to try and convince them that mainly me, but also Kappa at times, were awful people for dropping him from our lives, and that they should stop talking to me because of how big of...
So yeah, here it proves that there's, like, besides the alleged sexual assault, like, there's, before Orion self-admittedly thought that Kwite sexually assaulted them, they were already doing things towards trying to ruin Kwite's reputation before they even claimed that they themselves thought they were sexually assaulted, right? So that would definitely give motive to Orion over-exaggerating or lying about the sexual assault in order to continue ruining Kwite's career due to the bitterness that they have from him dropping him as a friend.
Of an asshole I am. I had a friend approach me as late as July of 2018 showing Orion had messaged them out of nowhere, trying to be friends and to convince them I was a horrible person. They said they didn't buy it or enjoy Orion slandering me, so they made me aware, which I greatly appreciated. And through all the parts that directly concerned me, I chose not to acknowledge or respond to any of it. It was small instances of people saying I was a horrible person in small corners of the public, but mostly in private, always without substantiating it. So it ultimately didn't matter and wouldn't have to affect me if I did my best not to let them. I wouldn't give Orion the attention he wanted and definitely didn't deserve, and I kept on moving forward. Orion did not. He tried to harm my reputation publicly, but somewhat anonymously, and it didn't change much. He tried in private to convince my friends I was a terrible person, and from what I know, it didn't do much either. As previous attempts to get a public reaction or outburst from me failed, as his attempts to ruin my friendships with others failed, Orion continued to escalate his methods. Things were quiet for a time until late August, early September 2018, when I got word that Orion was gonna appear in a video to give...
Thank you for the $5, Kid That Just Rants. Both YouTubers and celebrities, Zaptai, Slazo, Johnny Depp, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bachelorverse, and now Kwite, we're really still doing this? Yeah, accusations are gonna always come out. Also, I don't know if the Bachelorverse accusations are false. I don't think they've been confirmed false, or... I'm not familiar enough with the Bachelorverse situation, but I believe he's... was kind of guilty in some areas, but I forget. Yeah, so Kwite was told that Orion was going to make videos against him even back in 2018 before Orion even acknowledged themselves that they were allegedly sexually assaulted. So let's continue.
testimony of how I treated him. That video being the Tuspicious video. In it, you might remember that Orion shared he had tons of my personal details. He outed me for having self-harmed, thus publicly weaponizing my personal struggles against me, and eventually this culminated into the final call we ever had in mid-September 2018, which had a mediator present. And before we move forward, I need to take the time to address the actions of that mediator, a former friend of mine and another content creator named Danny, or Lord Bung. She was directly implicated in the original Twitlonger by Orion, and Bung went on herself to make a statement of support for Orion, both in her Discord server, YouTube community tab, and a few other places. The way Orion describes Bung's involvement is as the mediator of our final call, who acted as both the reason I calmed down and apologized after a fit of rage, and who is able to see through my apparent pattern of gaslighting that Orion claims I was continuing in that call. Bung presents herself as an equal mediator for both parties, where, when giving each side equal due, came to the conclusion that I was the one acting in bad faith. They said I was incredibly aggressive during that final call, claiming I changed my story and was intense when questioned. She described me as being transactional socially and an angry physical drunk at the times we were together in person, and that she didn't get the sense I wanted to be her friend at all during those times. Denny also said that Orion was one of her best friends, and she had seen the visceral emotions caused by the events.
I actually didn't see this response from Bung, because I remember Bung making a... a community post about this, but I don't remember them making... Yeah, I remember this one, but I don't remember this one. What? I guess I missed it? Because they made it, like, the day after. Okay, let's, like, really quickly read it. Hey everyone, this is in regards to the recent Kwite controversy. I just want to say that I've known Orion for several years now, and I know he's telling the truth. It would be a stupid amount of effort to actively and expertly lie about the details of these events, and his raw, visceral emotions for years. I've had to witness and help one of my best friends get through breakdown after breakdown over specific and consistent triggers for several years, and it absolutely breaks my heart when I see someone think he's lying. He just wanted his story out. He didn't want to have to carry so much alone. He wanted you all to know what kind of person Kwite is, and to just be cautious. I mediated a call between Orion and Kwite long ago regarding their relationship, and Kwite was incredibly harsh and aggressive. He would tell inconsistent stories and get very intense when questioned. It's not so much that a bad temper was the issue, it's that nothing was ever resolved. He would just yell the loudest and win. When Kwite and I shared an Airbnb in Melbourne and Anaheim for PAX Australia and VidCon, I recall him being very transactional socially and aggressive and very physical when drunk. I got no sense that he wanted to be my friend or even wanted to enjoy hanging out with people until he wants to be in some big YouTuber's video. Out of Kwite and Orion, I trust Orion a lot more. Thankfully, the response online has been, from this revelation has been very supportive for Orion, which is refreshing and incredible. It's a complex and triggering situation, and we don't really have anything to gain. My channel doesn't run on drama. If anything, we are risking getting absolutely destroyed by a very wealthy YouTuber. So while we're still able to speak, I'm going to post this. Kind of, I guess, implying that, like, Kwite will respond and then people will think he's untrustworthy afterwards. I don't know. I mean, this testimony of him being very aggressive and physical when drunk, I mean, isn't reflected in what Kwite is saying with, you know, being very averse to touch, but maybe he changes when he's drunk. He definitely wasn't drunk when going to the movie theater, though, for Black Panther, because wouldn't he be driving, or... Like, I don't think he was blasted out drunk before a 3 p.m. showing of Black Panther. Like, I don't think that was the case, so... I don't know. Let's hear what Kwite has to say now. Oh, wait. I need to fix this. Okay. There we go. Inaber says, I can't believe someone would get angry when facing allegations they believe to be false. Yeah, true. I know Kwite when he was drunk. I went drinking with him for the whole summer. Dude is just fun and a bit loud. That's it. Okay. So we have iNabber saying that, and I do believe iNabber. I'm very curious why Bung has this opinion. Is like quite wrong Bung in some way. Like, I guess we're about to find out in this section. Just a kid at rant sense too. Off topic. Just saying rest in peace, MJ and Prince. Alright. Thank you for the dono. Alright, so let's continue.
Close for years. All of this before ending off saying that the people taking a risk in the situation are Bung and Orion, because in doing all this, it's them who risk getting destroyed by a wealthy YouTuber. Everything Bung said in her statement regarding me are opinions she's reached on her own about my quality of character. I feel them to be very uncharitable, especially since both the events she says I was socially transactional during were industry events for my job, where part of the explicit purpose of traveling there was to meet people and network. And if these were opinions Danny held in the 2 years we stayed in contact after that final call, I unfortunately was never made aware of them or given an opportunity.
I never. The only time I've ever seen Kwite get mad was when I beat him in Smash Brothers and he was just annoyed. Yeah. Dude, Smash Brothers is like the #1 game people always pull out at like VidCon or these events, and it bothers me some. I want to like, this is a side tangent completely, but I want to like Smash so much because I love all the characters in it. I love gaming, but I just suck so much cock at Smash Brothers, and especially if I play, and when I play with someone, especially if I play with someone like at VidCon or whatever, they're always gonna know more than me at the game, and it's just not. I want to love Smash, but I don't, and it's annoying. But oh my god, there was like one time where I was playing Smash versus I think it was Technicals or Technicals' brother or like some Smash guy, and like I was playing Ridley and I like did something really good. Like I think I like countered him at just the right time with like a stab thing, but I didn't know what to do after, and he was like, dude, legitimately you could have won off that, but you just don't know how to play the game. So I don't know. Man, it's my best game. I remember Kwite being so confident he'd beat me, and that's why he was annoyed. Yeah, I don't know. Smash is just, I'm not good at it. I wish I was. I wish I enjoyed that game and I was good at it, but I'm not, dude. I'll fucking beat anyone in, like, Mario Party, Mario Kart, you know, fucking Pikmin, like, most Nintendo games, like, any, like, most Nintendo multiplayer games, even, like, Splatoon, maybe, although I'm not the best at it, but Smash, it's my one weak point, and it's the only game that people want to play at these conventions, and it's so annoying, dude. Like, why can't we get some Mario Party pros, dude? I don't know. Now I'm just getting excited to meet everyone again at VidCon this year. Not at the convention itself, but I'll probably be like around LA during that time. It's gonna be fun for me. Anyways, you don't want to hear about that. We're not talking about Mario Party and Smash. We're talking about Kwite. Let's get back to it. I'm sorry for that tangent, but yeah.
To discuss and perhaps rectify them with her before we last spoke. The last time I spoke with Bung was in 2020 through a brief DM exchange where she reaffirmed that she thought of me as a friend, and it's been radio silence in the 3 years following that on both sides. Now,
yeah, thank you for the $2, Artemis. It's painful to see Kwite having to be so personal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he like went from hiding his face to having to say that he has like sex issues, like it's just or sexual performance issues. It's just, yeah. X-Star Sonic Adventure 2 is my most replayed game of all time. iNabber, if we meet in real life and we're in a scenario where Sonic Adventure 2 can be booted up and there's 2 controllers and we race in the battle mode in that, I'm beating you. There's no question about it. Sonic Adventure 2, it's on, dude. It's fucking on. And I know you have Shadow as your profile pic on your alt account too. But I'm confident in that one, dude. I'll make bets on that one. Dude, I do not fuck with my Sonic skills, bro. Anyway, let's continue.
In her community post, Bung described her and Orion as a we, like the two of them were taking the risk collectively, which directly ties Danny with the side she falls to. I don't hold any of that against Danny, but in the years since we last spoke, she spent a lot of time with Orion. She works closely with Orion on Confinement, which is Bung's flagship series, and Bung and Orion dated each other as far back as 2021 from tweets I could find, and if memory serves, as recently as around this time last year. I don't have receipts for that one, that's just when I remember hearing about it for the first time in passing. None of of this is to say that I am entitled somehow to Bung's time or attention. But the bias of which person Danny would lean to today is self-evident. Her image as an equal mediator is further hampered when Orion describes her as knowing better than to believe me in that final call, implying a foregone conclusion about if anything that I said in that call would be true or not. If this is the case, this would not only negate Bung's ability to act as a neutral character witness today, but also her status as a neutral mediator in that call. You could argue—
What a way to own Orion with his own words, dude. Holy shit. He's like, yep, the mediator wasn't balanced because you kind of admitted it. Damn, dude.
that Kappa's testimony when I first cut off Orion is similar, but he never tried to hold himself as a pillar of neutrality, and he certainly didn't use his framing to help falsely accuse someone else of rape, based on the fact he didn't think they wanted to be friends with him very much. The only reason Danny's testimony is relevant here is because she was meant to be Orion and I's mediator in our last spoken conversation, an event I'd like to now give my account of and perspective on in depth. One thing that me, Bung, and Orion all agree happened in that call is that I got aggressive and explosive, and at points I absolutely was. It is an emotional response that, looking back, I feel was completely reasonable, especially considering the circumstances I was put in during that conversation. This call, which I sincerely tried my best to speak civilly and keep my cool in, is with someone I distanced myself from half a year ago because of his codependence towards me and the emotional strain he put on my mental health. Someone who had now come back into my life by appearing in a video that self-admittedly was trying to destroy my career, in which he publicly outed my struggle with self-harm before I ever got to open up about it on my own, where he also claimed I was emotionally abusive to him with nothing substantiating it, and said that I dropped him from my life solely because of my arrogance over my newfound success and hunger for more of it. All of this, again, which made me certain that I had made the right choice in cutting him off. I'm coming fresh off the back of that upload. This call also notably took place on September 15th, 2018. Me and Bung talk about having the call set up and actually starting the call in our Discord DMs on that day. But meanwhile, outside and in real life, where I lived at the time, placed me and my family squarely in the path of Hurricane Florence. I had relatives closer to the coast who had moved in with us because their house was at risk of being destroyed and it was unsafe to stay there. Even where I lived further inland, the storm was a threat we had to prepare for in case of losing power, debris, and general infrastructure failure. It wasn't some kind of non-issue just because we weren't by the ocean. The storm and the new people in my house was a change of environment for me, but manageable on its own. And this isn't my attempt at bringing up an excuse for my actions, but rather a genuine factor in my ability to participate in this call and the amount of stress I was actively managing at once during the time. I let Bung know this could be an issue the day of, and she had even apologized for putting me through all of this in the middle of a hurricane. Unfortunately, it did become an issue when the basement where all of the equipment I used to make videos had flooded. My stress was threefold of thinking I'd almost lost all the expensive equipment I needed to do my job, what it meant for my family as far as costs and their future plans, and just generally still being in a hurricane. This was something I also talked about with Orion after we reached a truce of sorts in that call. The flooding caused me to have to delay the meeting till later that day and was an ongoing situation with my family that didn't exist in the backdrop, but was an active problem during this whole thing. This call with Orion, what would without a doubt be a highly emotional and personal discussion for me, was not the most pressing thing I had going on at the time. And even then, I still made my best effort to be in that call as level-headedly as I could manage. And ultimately, there were several things that happened during the conversation itself that eventually set me off. Earlier in the day, a friend of mine, Evan, had sent me one of the pictures of Orion and I together. It was one of the ones that Orion leaked himself publicly during the—
Yeah, Wallace's real name is Evan, by the way. I think that's public. But, yeah. Just to clarify there.
This current round of allegations. At that point in time, Evan would not have had access to this picture on his own, unless Orion had posted them somewhere or shared them with people I didn't know and didn't approve of seeing my face. I brought this up to Orion, having proof that at some point he had leaked my face, and he claimed to have never done that, telling a lie directly to me in a call we were meant to patch things up. And when I mentioned the evidence I had proving it, he gave no response, and unfortunately the conversation moved past it. This again makes the claim in their twitlonger of never having posted my pictures anywhere incorrect as well. Maybe Orion only meant posting it to social media like Twitter or Instagram, but as the person who got doxxed, I very much count sending my face to people I don't approve of as posting it somewhere. The trigger that directly set me off was later in that call though. My emotions were definitely running high at the time, but at some point I told my account of when we met up in February in that call, of how the single kiss that me and Orion did share was something I felt uncomfortable with doing at the time. In his twitlonger, Orion preempts my actions in that call by saying I was just further gaslighting him. This was in order to paint anything I may have done in that call as inauthentic inauthentic or untrustworthy before you even find out what I did. But here he says he tried to gaslight me further, claiming that I had led him on, or worse, assaulted him instead. The assault Orion says I accused him of is in reference to me telling Orion and Danny that I was uncomfortable with that kiss. I have said the same thing happened that day for years, because I remember how weird I felt about it soon after it happened, and how my discomfort around the topic still remains when having to look back on all this as intensely as I've had to make this video. It was the same story when I vented to my friends months before that September call with Orion. It was the same when I told my therapist, the same recently when friends of mine were first approached by Orion, who went directly to Orion saying I raped him, but who were still willing to hear me out, all the way up to in this video. What set me off was that after I communicated that the kiss had made me uncomfortable, Orion denied it. And he said something to the effect of telling me that I was wrong and that we actually kissed more than once, saying that I had initiated it the second time. We did not do that. As I'm seeing it, Orion is lying straight to my face again about something incredibly sensitive to me. He's essentially told me that I'm wrong and I actually wanted it when we kissed, and that really I was into it so much that I kissed him again myself. Despite every denial I've made when he's asked these kind of things before, and despite me honestly communicating how he made me feel here, I'm being told I'm wrong. And in fact, the way I remember it, have always remembered it from 2018 till now, it didn't even happen. I saw red. I felt like this was not the first time Orion had lied this called about something to my face, and that was this serious. I was yelling and screaming and really angry and just not handling it well. Though any claims Orion made about me throwing and breaking things are impossible for him to have known, as there were no webcams turned on in this call, and the clipping audio you may hear from a microphone isn't much to go off. And whether I was breaking shit or not, it doesn't change if whether my anger was warranted or not. The only person who would have been in real danger over Discord because of my outburst would have been me to myself. Orion says again that during this fit, all I did was try to gaslight him further, in another attempt to discredit anything I might have said or done during that outburst, no matter what it was. And Orion also claimed it took Danny calming me down to get me to apologize. This is not true. In reality, I let my family know what this call would be about, so they were aware of how it might go with emotions on both ends likely to run so high. In truth, it was my dad holding me through a panic attack while I cried that helped me pull myself together enough. When I got mad in the call, I physically left the room to actively remove myself from the situation that was distressing me. I'm not sure what else I was supposed to do. I was trying to handle my emotions. I was trying to manage my outburst in the least destructive way I could.
W dad, I agree. W dad. I'm glad he has such a great father. Yeah. Boblax died again. It's just that, I don't know what type of commentary I can give. I think it's important to, hear, Kwite out. And obviously not everyone here has watched the whole video, so, there's certain parts where I won't be commenting as much, but that's just because I don't really have anything to say. I think the video speaks for itself in a lot of regards, so yeah. But I will be talking about the video, obviously, once we're done watching it, and I'll be talking more a bit later, so hang tight, hang tight.
And it wasn't enough, apparently, for Orion. I wasn't even sure if I was going to go back in after that. It felt like a repeat of March 2018 again. It felt like I didn't get to say anything or finish any thoughts without it being shot down or talked over. Still, I went into that last call telling myself that I'd try to do better than the last time. I didn't want it to be another screaming match, and at the time, I felt bad that I hadn't managed to keep my cool. At the time, in that headspace, reacting like that felt like I had failed. But now, looking back on those, I realized that both times, anger was a reasonable reaction to the type of things I had been put through and told by Orion. Still, after cooling down, I did end up going back in to apologize, and I had meant it at the time, despite Orion's belief that I was insincere. Danny earlier claimed that in this call the issue wasn't my bad temper, but that nothing ever got resolved, and instead I would just yell the loudest and win. This also isn't true, as there were things I actively apologized for in that call, something Bung attested to me having done in our DMs, and Tusk also confirmed in the pinned comment of his video. I gave far more ground in that call than I got, even when I didn't agree with the things I was choosing to let go. Still, at that point, it was my understanding that even if it was messy, me and Orion had sorted things out and could try to move on with our lives. In hindsight, and I mean within days after the hurricane wasn't an issue anymore and I had time to think about the whole thing, I have always regretted not self-advocating for myself more in that conversation. There were issues that I never got resolved or to even mention to Orion. I didn't get closure on the things I brought up to Orion, like leaking my face, and a lot of that was because I was more concerned at the time with the hurricane I was in the middle of. Because of that, I conceded things that I really shouldn't have and probably wouldn't have normally to try and get it over with quicker and back to focusing on my family sooner. The thing is, despite the way he claims I treated him all the time, right after we put a lid on our differences, Orion floated the idea of trying to be friends again immediately after that. I was uneasy about that concept as soon as it got mentioned. But since I was the one conceding more fault, even if it was just to get this whole thing over with, I at least decided to give it a try. For a period of time, I genuinely tried to DM amicably with Orion.
Biggest mistake. Nah. That's where you should have just cut it off. Biggest mistake from Kwite right there. People in chat doing more commentary than Bubba. Hey, like, I know that the video just exists and you can watch it on Kwite's channel, but I do think it's important for me to show this entire video to my audience because I specifically talked about these allegations previously, and I want to do my due diligence to show Kwite's side. A lot of us are reacting to this for the first time, like me, for example. A lot of people are reacting to it alongside me for the first time. I don't really know what he's gonna say. I don't have, like if I watched this video and made a commentary video on it, right, I'd just cut out the parts where I had no commentary to say, and then I'd cut to when I can talk or whatever, but this is like a live reaction, so obviously, I'm not gonna be talking all the time, but I assure you I will be talking immensely after this video is done. We're almost done it, and yeah, hang tight, chat, but I did, hang tight, but yeah.
Orion again. Most of these conversations after that call took place over Twitter DMs. I can only prove my side of the conversation is real, as Twitter archive viewer is busted with Orion's side of the conversation. It only works up to like May 2017, and their Twitter is suspended, so I can't go just directly to it. What I was able to grab was Orion's side of the messages by digging through the actual files themselves. I've lined Orion's messages up with the screenshots of the DMs I've sent to prove that at least my end of the exchanges in these logs are real, but the only way I can even get an archive of what Orion said is through Control-Fing his Twitter ID and the direct messages JSON file. And full disclosure, these are relatively easy to fake. You can load them up in Notepad. If you're skeptical because of that, it's totally fair, and if anybody knows a way I can verify these, please let me know. Regardless, I believe the messages I can prove I sent still paint the nature of these conversations fairly accurately. Orion talked about how getting to be friends again was a knot in his chest going away that he didn't realize was there. He said he had thought of this scenario before he went to bed tons of times. Very early in, I told Orion that I'm not sure how I feel about being friends again, that I'd give it a try, but I can't promise that I'll be comfortable enough to follow through by the end. There was a discussion about me being more upfront with what bothers me, which I agreed at the time was somewhat my fault, but looking back, I definitely expressed my feelings before all this, and it often didn't matter, as Orion would go on ahead with certain things I didn't want to do anyways. But I did really try for like a month, but every time I messaged Orion, it felt forced on my end, and I was always incredibly uncomfortable speaking with him. Regardless of either of our apologies to the other, I could not get past the totality of our history, and especially the fresh wound of him publicly outing me for having self-harmed. Eventually, one day, Orion asked if I was free to call, and I wasn't comfortable doing that. This time, though, I didn't want to dance around talking to Orion about that like I had last time. So I decided to be upfront about this and communicate it exactly like he had asked me to when we first started talking again. My angle was that we've hopefully settled things, that I've got no ill will for Orion and wished him the best moving forward, but that after giving it an honest effort, I didn't feel being in each other's lives again was on the table. Just conversing with Orion through text was enough to make me anxious every time. There was some back and forth where Orion wanted to at least keep trying it, and I could call it off if I was ever uncomfortable again. Honestly, I knew that would be wasted time for us both by the end of it. I said I forgave him on some things, but I couldn't forget them, so I didn't want to continue speaking. To some extent, everything I apologized for in that final call I was sincere about. I did regret getting angry in the call at the time. I was willing to let certain things go and take responsibility for things I didn't really feel were my fault in order to let bygones be bygones so we could move forward. But after having to re-examine my relationship with Orion these last few weeks, how he treated me while we knew each other and after, what happened in that call, how much I wish I had said and never got closure for, I am retracting anything I apologized for that night, as I do not stand by any of it. My reactions to the situations I was put in were completely reasonable. And considering what I've been dealing with in recent weeks, I am done being the bigger person so that my abuser will leave me alone, because he clearly won't. It was hard for me to gauge how Orion felt about being cut off again. even if it was on better terms this time, but I thought I could at least get back to pushing forward to what's next for me. The whole thing was emotionally and personally taxing, but after all was said and done, we ended up back where we were before. Me and Orion weren't talking, and I was trying to move on with my life. For the next few years, it seemed to stay pretty quiet. Occasionally, I saw people saying I was a shitty person, saying things that echoed what Orion had said about my character in the past, but considering that this video exists, that peace obviously didn't last. So I'd like to track one of the people who's always had a generally negative opinion of me that Orion later befriended, and how the severity of the reasons for disliking me escalated over time. First, this guy said I was getting less attention than I used to, and this was right before my blow up. Almost a year later, he's in my Q&A replies asking a somewhat genuine question. When I hit 500,000 subs, he's telling me, this is your peak and you need to face reveal, otherwise you'll never grow more. And even with all that, they still said they couldn't judge me personally, even though they didn't like my videos. But he still hates my thumbnails and thinks very negatively of my viewers. In 2020, they upgraded me from a shitty YouTuber to a shitty person in general. And at some point, they started feeling this strongly enough that if they saw me mentioned anywhere, they would go out of their way to say how much they hate me. And it was a few years later where the Hail Mary finally dropped, where in early 2022, unprompted and in a reply thread completely unrelated to me, this guy was the first person to ever call me a rapist. This was the first time I'd ever heard anything like this being said about me. And I'm very caught off guard because I have never even had sex before. They alluded to me being a supposed sex pest one more time, saying it to folks whose tweets I'd used in my videos, and it became apparent that this whole thing was an event that they'd been anticipating. The day the allegations dropped, they said, Kwite's only hope now is stop Asian hate. In my opinion, in a situation like this, that is very out of line. To me, it demonstrated a confidence and satisfaction in my suffering that had been brewing for a while. They were even in my editor's replies, instigating with someone who had nothing to do with these allegations.
So basically, Orion told them a story of rape just because they were hating on Kwite in Twitter responses, and then that's how they knew beforehand. So Kwite or Orion is going to Kwite haters on Twitter and gassing them up behind the scenes with the story. Instead of... And some of those tweets calling him a rapist were from, like, September 2022. So that's, like, what, like 6 months before the allegations actually came out? I mean, I think that's a red flag right there, right? Like, Orion just, like, reaching out to people who hate Kwite to bolster their opinion of him more. Like, hey, you hate Kwite. Found out look what he did to me. Do you hate him even more now? You know? They're in chat. Who's in chat? Orion? Or the person that that Kwite's referring to. I'm not sure. Anyway. Oh, the censored guy. Okay, Jack Blocks. Okay, what is Jack Blocks saying? Cause I called him a rapist because I've known Orion for 5+ years. Okay. So, you've known him for longer. You're not just like a random that they saw hating and then came in contact with. Because that's the impression I'm getting under... that's the impression I'm getting from the Kwite video, is that you were just a hater and then Orion told you, or maybe he just doesn't know, maybe he just doesn't have enough information. But if Orion and Kwite are so close, wouldn't Kwite know that you were friends with Orion for 5+ years?
Other than having some association with me. He parroted that line where Kwite's taken a long time to respond, so he's looking suspicious, equating my silence to guilt. If I knee-jerk reacted to this, it would have done me no good. The escalation of this person's negative opinions of me over time, from when they were just...
I hated Kwite before Orion, but when Orion told me what he had done, that escalated it. Alright. I am now on the side of Kwite, but Orion won't respond to me. Ooh. Okay. So you're just saying you were tricked by Orion. Damn. So even Jack Blocks is pro Kwite now. Damn. Not looking good for Orion.
an individual who my content wasn't for, to whenever they met Orion, and as they spent more time around him, is apparent. When this person started getting comfortable enough to say I'd done disgusting, incredibly serious things completely unsubstantiated, both directly to people who enjoyed my content and in a wider public setting, regardless if it was relevant to discussion, to how they've been taking petty joy in mocking people who are affected by these events because they're adjacent to them, now that they've gone fully public. All that is emblematic of the lengths Orion has been willing to go to try and hurt me over time, and how when one option failed, there has been seemingly no upper limit to how far they'll take it if it means that it will cause me harm in some way. Orion is not just saying I raped him, he's throwing every negative thing I could have possibly done to him at the wall to try and get anything to stick. They went for transphobia, sexual assault, saying slurs, gaslighting, emotional abuse, anger issues, threatening him. Take your pick of any of those. It doesn't matter because Orion didn't give evidence for any of them. Despite Orion saying how he doesn't want to dox me and how he won't share certain evidence because I want to stay anonymous, it rings hollow when they haven't presented much of their own evidence at all, and multiple times have leaked my private info, most recently in such a huge and public way. Orion accused me of doing the worst thing you can do to somebody to him as another escalation, and he put my face out there against my will with the label of rapist attached to its reveal. I have been genuinely anxious to go outside, and the chances of this actually happening were relatively small, but what do you usually want to do to someone when you think they're a rapist? Not very positive things, I imagine, and on some level, Orion was okay with that possibility. He completely stole my agency and privacy away from me, and there are ways I will never recover from this. Having to go over these logs to make my case has been emotionally painful, and while people saying awful things about me on the internet is not...
Someone says, Boblax, what do you think? Sorry, I just can't say your username. It's like Etexi. You say, Boblax, what do you think of Kwite's response video so far? Do you think he perfectly disassembled the accusations and addressed it in a good way? 100%. I think this is like one of the best response videos I've ever seen. Personally, I would have liked it to be shorter, but again, I mean, I guess being as thorough as possible. Better safe than sorry, right? With the situation he's in, better safe than sorry. Better address everything so that Orion doesn't have anything like to grab to, like, oh, you ignored this, or you did that, or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, great video so far. I have no real issues with it.
New. It was happening now more than ever, and the types of things people would say was a lot crueler. It took him going this far, but after 6 years of trying to hurt me and my friendships, constant emotional abuse I've had to let lie because responding to it would have only hurt me more, my abuser has managed to make a permanent mark on me in a way he's only gotten to do in private before, but now gets to share with the public. He weaponized people's good conscience and their compassion for others who they believe suffered something awful to hurt me in one of the most widest-reaching ways possible. Public shaming. And from what I've seen, Orion has been reveling in it. He used the Kwite...
The sneaky rape... Or, I was about to say sneaky raper. Jeez, that's not your username. Sneaky Reaper says, no cap, I was snoozing. Like, okay. I mean, I agree to an extent, because it's like... It's not like this video was very entertaining. It's not like it was very high octane, like, ooh, like fucking eyes glued to the screen every time, right? Obviously, there was some, like, revealing shit, like, oh my god, I can't believe Orion did that. But this video isn't really meant for entertainment. It's about clearing his name definitively and precisely and stuff like that. So, while I do agree it was, like, I guess a snooze fest at certain points, like, what can you do? Like, it's not meant, you're not meant to be 100% entertained by this video, right? And I'm sorry for saying your username wrong, I think, Sneaky Reaper, yeah.
Fan art hashtag in his original tweet with the allegations, so anybody looking through the tag for art would definitely see what was being said. He locked his replies to mutuals only, so nobody he didn't know could say anything to directly contest him in his replies. He promoted the Drop Kwite and Stand With Orion hashtags for people to use as a rallying cry and to reach as many ears as possible. He shared a bit.ly link named after the Drop Kwite hashtag that led directly to his Twitlonger to make it as accessible as possible for new people to read. He was retweeting and liking any tweet in support of him that condemns me in the harshest terms possible. Like a lot of allegations towards a public figure, this was curated to reach as many people.
Yeah, so, like, with that, like, I hate to say that, like, when someone does that, that means they're not telling the truth, because I definitely can see a scenario where someone's a legitimate victim and they do, like, kind of promote it and push it because they're, like, that angry and upset and, like, traumatized by the scenario that they kind of want to see some sort of justice out there and get their word out there. I understand that. But when I do see stuff like that, it does put, like, a little bit of doubt in my mind as to, like, the intentions, mainly, like, comboed with certain things like this, where it's like, If you've been victimized, DM me and like other stuff in the. Oh wait, I guess you can't see it, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say like that's a definitive like sign that it's fake, because I can definitely see a scenario, as I said, where it is true and people are doing that. But yeah, that is something that like I kind of saw and I was like, well, you kind of like I get it, but like. Really? All those retweets? I don't know.
People who are or would be viewers of me as possible. The idea behind that is usually to spread awareness of a dangerous individual, but Orion used those same mechanisms of virality. He showed my face to at least prove he knew me and to take away my anonymity, and he accused me of the worst thing he possibly could. They attempted to get as many people as they could to believe I'm a monster. And because all these people think I'm an irredeemable piece of shit with what Orion's shown, they have like an A-OK in their head to say like awful and hurtful shit about me, because they think I deserve it. It was another way of Orion directing as much harm to me as he could manage. Orion pushed hard on the idea of believe victims first, no matter what, both through the tweets he chose to share and by holding a Twitter space where one of the folks speaking went on to champion how always supporting the victim, even if it turns out to be fake, is the right choice, all because it costs you as the bystander nothing.
It costs you absolutely nothing, and it costs you literally less than brain cells to believe a victim. And, you know, if allegations are proven false, then they're proven false, and if the allegations are right, then you backed the right horse. And
as someone who has not only just gone through the falsely accused side of this, but someone who has also made the same mistake of acting too quickly on allegations and hurting people I cared for because of it, this type of thinking is harmful and needs to stop. It is absolutely a good and noble policy to support victims when they speak. You should support their ability to speak and not ridicule them for speaking, but the saying is trust but verify. Orion framed himself as
I agree. I have the exact same approach.
A victim in this situation. He did it to try and use the way the internet generally reacts to allegations in order to publicly abuse me and hurt me on the widest scale he could imagine, continuing that same pattern of behavior he's shown towards me for years. I wouldn't say you were complicit in my abuse if you didn't stay neutral or even if you outright attacked me, but you actively progressed my abuser's goal of trying to hurt me in any way he could by taking Orion at face value. By trying to support an accuser as the victim with no questions asked, you helped an abuser further hurt their target. At the very least, I am more certain now than ever that cutting off Orion was absolutely the right thing for my mental health and my pursuit of happiness. I was escaping an incredibly toxic relationship and dynamic that was abusive. And ever since, Orion has continued to try and harm my reputation, my mental well-being, and is at least okay with the idea of me getting hurt physically. Either at my own hands, considering my past, or someone else's, considering that they don't.
Yeah, I agree, Wavy. This is a really, really good response. Like, I can't think of anything besides, like, obviously little things that would improve my viewing experience, which isn't necessarily, like, the goal of this. Like, oh, I wish it was shorter, or, oh, I wish it was, like, this or that. Like, honestly, like, I can't see anything objectively wrong with this video. Like, this probably, even though it's not the most fun thing to watch, that's not the goal of the video, right? So, for what it set out to do, like, I think this is a perfect response, honestly. I don't see anything wrong with this, right? Like, the only criticism is, like, you're too thorough. But, I mean, it's better to be too thorough than not thorough enough, right? It's like, yeah.
Doxed me in what they accused me of. When ruining my friendships failed, when going to the public the first time failed, when trying to have me back in his life again failed, I thought finally he'd moved on. But I was wrong, and he went on to accuse me of the worst thing he possibly could. Through this whole situation, he continues the pattern of trying to ruin my friendships, my livelihood, my passion, and my reputation, among other things. And this is just another milestone of how far Orion is willing to go to hurt me. My abuser took advantage of the aggressively sympathetic and viral way the internet typically reacts to rape allegations to continue tormenting me. A lot of people have brought up the Slazo situation from back in 2019 during this whole thing, saying that it's ironic I was part of pushing those allegations and now I'm suffering my own, like it's karma coming around. And I mean, on some level, I can't really say they're wrong. I don't mean in the idea that I knew the allegations were always fake and I was trying to use them to end his career. I did not do that and I never would knowingly. I'm not certain where the idea of me being malicious in that situation first came from, but I'd been approached by someone I trusted and had other people I trusted vouching for them, and the evidence I'd seen at the time made me believe someone someone I knew had done something horrible. But with hindsight, it's a lot easier to see how careless and irresponsible I was being. It's because I saw Slazo as a friend that how I handled those allegations wasn't good enough. I failed him as a friend by believing what I saw wholesale and not doing the bare minimum of what he deserved, by not even waiting for him to give his side before making a judgment. An event that has now echoed itself in my life. I have felt guilty that he suffered like that, at least in part because of my negligence ever since, and now I can directly relate to him after going through all this shit. I feel like I owe that guy a third apology, and still nothing I do will make up entirely for what I helped put him through. Now, having gone through it for real myself and hearing people constantly say that I tried to end someone's career based on something I knew was a lie has been frustrating, especially because I had been putting up with this exact kind of public smearing on a lower level from Orion for ages, even before the Slazo stuff happened. I have laid out my case here as best as I can.
So yeah, I mean, with the Slazo stuff, like, okay, first let's read this donation. Water Droplet TM, a wise man once said, go to the police, but whether it's fake or not, it seems people only go to Twitter for these situations, yeah. Although some people on Twitter have gone to the police prior to going on Twitter. It's not fair to say that for everybody, but yeah. I get your sentiment there. Like, for the Slazo situation, like, you know, was it fucked up for Kwite to be involved in pushing these allegations against Slazo? Yeah, but he genuinely believed them, and, like, at the time when they came out, like, a lot of people genuinely believed, like, this was before. This is why everyone, you know, cites the Slazo situation as an example of why you shouldn't believe all victims 100% wholeheartedly when they come out with a scenario. And the Slazo situation is the example of that. Everyone says the Slazo situation. Because when it did come out, you know, a lot of people just believed it because there seemed to be evidence that he was saying certain things. Like, obviously, like, there's a DM where it's like, it's rape time and stuff like that, and obviously we were given new context to it to prove that it wasn't as bad as it initially seemed, but it, like, back then we only operated on kind of like, is there proof? If there's proof, then he's fucked, right? And, like, the proof that was given, nowadays it wouldn't be enough because of the Slazo situation. We learned from it. But at the time, the person coming out against Slazo, they had, like, a DM kind of proof that was utilized in a way that was taken out of context. But, I mean, it was technically proof. So a lot of people, including myself, did believe the allegations. And I believe I went on Augie's podcast, and Augie went on there too. And we basically said that we believe it and stuff like that. And then it came out to be false. So, you know, it was a learning experience for a lot of people, including Kwite. So where Kwite is at fault for that, and I'm glad he's taking responsibility, and he should apologize, and him apologizing and referencing it again here is good, but I don't really hold it like that hard against Kwite that he believed the allegations, because a lot of people did, right? So I don't hold that too hard against him, although it definitely was a mistake on his end, right?
Talked about a lot of personal things before I was ready or never planned on sharing, but I hope this has helped to give a more holistic view of mine and Orion's relationship. Truth be told, if this video gets across how I hope it does, it would only be to get back to a spot worse than where I was at before. Being called a rapist or a sex pest is a label that's probably never going to fully leave my name now because of these allegations and how far they ended up getting despite having no legs to stand on. There are several people I was friends with, or at least friendly with, who distanced themselves from me over this that I may not get to talk to again, and I can't really blame them for that. I understand why they made those choices. At one point, I made the same choice in their position. Hearing that somebody you know, even on a surface level, might be capable of one of the worst things you can do to someone else is terrifying. I just ask that if anybody who is in that position and distanced themselves away from me because of this whole thing and you're watching this, I would really appreciate the chance to get to talk to you about this and try and sort things out, but if not, I understand why. This has dredged up bad memories. My face was put in the public against my will, as well as a wealth of other personal details. Pretty much everything I put into maintaining my privacy and trying to be just a normal person outside of YouTube is just kind of gone. I'm going to be taking some time off, at least a month. I don't know when or if I'll be back. I'm not entirely sure if this whole thing or the nature of this job is for me anymore. That's all for now.
Okay, wait, that is not something I was expecting at the end. I don't know if I want to do YouTube anymore. Is it because of situations like this, or is it because that's strange? Like, the video's good, by the way. Great video. You know, congrats on a good response for sure. But, like, with him quitting, I don't... If he's been thinking about this for a while and has had like a kind of feeling with YouTube that's not for him and he might want to take a step back for a while or whatever, then, and this is the thing that pushed him over the edge, I get that 100%. But if he was like gung-ho about YouTube, like I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and then, or the next 10 years or whatever, and then this situation came up, and because of it, he doesn't want to continue anymore, I would say, my advice to him would be like, push through it. Like, YouTube is so much more than dealing with false allegations, right? Sometimes it's going to happen, it's horrible, and I don't want you to have to go through experience like this again, but like, obviously there's more to YouTube than just this. Like, if you continue YouTube, it's not like you're going to have to deal with this situation again, probably, or this type of situation. You could just make videos. I don't know, I would hate to see him like give up on his passion of content creation just because of this bad scenario, right? But if this is something he was already, you know, he was already kind of thinking of doing, and it's kind of like unrelated to this scenario, but this scenario kind of pushed him over the edge, then I would say like, yeah, do you. If you need like, if you don't want to do YouTube anymore, like that's completely fine. But yeah, Boblex getting drumped by so many Alice Mark videos, yeah. Okay, so let's like refresh to see what the response is. Looks like we don't have that many dislikes. Being received well, which I'm glad. Hopefully he recovers some of his subs. Obviously, like, this is still on his name, you know, like, yeah, and you know what? Hey, wait. How much money have I made on this stream? $33? Okay. What? Can I make it custom? Or is it just these two amounts? No, fuck it, dude. Should I just say thanks, dude? Or should I just say, I'm just gonna say thanks, dude. Fuck it. I don't even have anything to say. Like, just thanks, dude. Like, just super thanks, dude. Good job. Okay, let me, in case any info comes up. Nope. Thanks. I could edit it and say something different. I don't know. I just, I'm mainly doing this because, like, I got donations from the stream, and I appreciate it, right? But, you know, I showed his video, so I'm just trying to give that back. You know. I don't know. I really don't want this comment to be taken the wrong way. Like, ooh, you made a video, like, talking about my allegations, and now you're, like, saying thanks because it seems like a W. I don't know. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to pay him off or anything. I just... I don't know. Like, I made $33 from the stream. I feel like, you know, it only makes sense to give it back to him and then some. Because he's the one who had to go through all of this, and I do feel a little bad from benefiting. But I do also want to support him. So, yeah. Check the thing I sent you on Twitter. Let's see my... Actually... Just in case, I'm gonna hide my mentions in case, like, someone put something kind of bad. Wait, what? Who said these? Fat Man. Okay, Fat Man on Twitter. Proves Orion's. Okay, wait. Oh my god, dude. Bruh. Come on, come on. Now I feel a little weird about the $50. I don't want to feel like I'm paying it off or anything. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so we have these screenshots, but like, do we really need to look at them? Like, come on. We have the entire, we have everything here, dude. Literally everything. Wish him the best. Alright, so that was the video. We could look at the screenshots, but I think I'm done here. I think I'm good. And I think that the response was great. I'm going to continue streaming, but I'm going to do it on my other channel. We're going to probably play some games, just talk about the situation a little bit, but I want to kind of keep this video specifically more condensed. So I'm going to have a redirect over to my other channel, and you guys can check that out. But for now, I think I'm going to end. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for coming in and giving your input, especially people relate to the situation like iNabber and who else was that guy, like Jack Blocks. Yeah, and if I have any updates on the situation, I'll probably make a YouTube short on it or whatever. I'm going to go live on my other channel, which will be redirected to. So if you want to watch that, you can just stick here, and then soon you'll be redirected to my other live. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later. Thanks for sticking around, guys.